ahead and call to order. Go through the roll call first. Lori Blake. Mike.
Mike Sharon, here.
Hebron.
Hebron.
Judy. Mary.
Mary Kochevsky, Marlboro.
Great. Joe.
Joe Clitty, Hebron.
Jess.
Jessica Daxis, Hebron.
Carrie.
Carrie Fralino, Marlboro.
Gabe.
Gabe Marks, Hebron.
Eric.
Eric Shevchenko, Andover.
Great. Sue.
Sue Stofley, Marlboro.
And Mike Morris, Hebron. From the administration, Scott.
Scott Leslie, acting superintendent.
Penny.
And Driscoll, high school principal.
Great. Dr. Strucy.
Michael Strucy, middle school principal.
Eva.
Eva Gallup, business manager.
Great. Chris.
Chris Mader, assistant principal, RHAM High School.
Kristen.
Kristen Small, supervisor of people services.
And Christine.
Christine Howard, director of people services.
Great. Our student reps, Lily
Lily Shevchenko, Andover.
and Rowan.
Rowan Echo and Hebron.
Great. Did I forget anybody? Anybody out?
Just joined.
Lori? I'm sorry, who did?
Judy just joined.
I'm sorry, Lori. My bad. Lori, and sorry, who else joined?
Judy did.
Judy?
Dr. Judy Benson Clark, Marlboro.
Thank you. All right, we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, at this point, we need a motion to executive session.
Yeah.
So if I could get a motion to go into executive session?
This is Mike Sharon. I'd like to make a motion, move into executive session.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay, Sue, second that. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we are move on to executive session. All right. Item number 4, motion based on executive session.
All right, this is Mike Sharon, Hebron. I'd like to make a motion that the RHAM Board of Education appoint Colin McNamara as superintendent of schools, effective July 1st, 2022, and continuing through June 30th, 2025, subject to the confirmation by the Commissioner of Education in accordance with Section 10-157 of the Connecticut General Statutes, and moved further that the board chairperson be authorized to finalize and execute a contract of employment for Mr. McNamara's service as superintendent.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. Joe Clitty.
Seconded by Joe Coletti. Discussion? One more time, discussion by anybody? If there's no discussion, I'll call the vote. Lori Blake,
Yes.
Mike Sharon,
Yes.
Dr. Benson Clark,
No.
Mary,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
Carrie,
Abstain.
Gabe,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Sue,
Yes.
and Mike Morris, I vote yes. The motion carries. Welcome to Hebron.
You take that seat.
I've been watching for a few months. Thank you all very much. I'm very excited. Looking forward.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. All right. We'll move on to item number 5, public comments. Hebron, Andover, and Marlboro community engagement and attendance at BOE public meetings, Board of Education public meetings is welcome. The public comment segment of the meeting agenda is set aside so the Board of Education may receive public comments. Procedurally, public remarks will be limited to 3 minutes, and citizens will be asked to identify themselves. Because the Board of Education is limited by the Freedom of Information Act to discussing only matters on the agenda, the Board of Education is not permitted to engage in a discussion of the comments presented. That being the case, do we have anybody who would like to make public comment? Please, if you could state your name and where you're from.
Mary Rose Mead, 109 Church Street in Amston.
Great, thank you.
I'm here as a taxpayer, a parent, and in full disclosure, an employee of Region 8 as the district department coordinator. After the February 28th public forum, the CTE department coordinator was invited to make a case to the board to retain an early childhood education teacher position and add a .6 to teach the now defunct foods program. And I admire Jackie's passion as well as the board's willingness to consider supporting programming that meets educational needs of a wide scope of students. I very much support this kind of programming. However, I don't think that right now is the time to try to bring that those programs forward again. I feel it's too rushed, and financially it's not prudent. This year's budget was created with an understanding that the towns would be looking for a specific rate of reduction due to bond savings. The reduction of the .4 early childhood position was discussed at length at the December, January, and February Board of Education meetings, which included a 10-minute discussion on February 1st with Q&A from the board about the position. It's clear that this budget process required prioritizing amid financial realities, which include employee contacts, special education costs, and a lack of clarity around the state's input for excess cost funding. The budget had to consider expectations from the towns responding to taxpayers who were affected financially during the pandemic. And for this reason, restoring that position, restoring any position, was tabled with the hope that the new superintendent would take a broad view of the needs of the district and planning for the future would be comprehensive. By focusing now on this one position, what is not being seen is how much RHAM has lost across multiple disciplines in the last 5 years. We've lost programs that every single student is impacted by every single day. And any conversation around programs and adding to restore programs should be broadly focused, fully transparent, and led by district administration. In the time that the CTE department has been reduced by 5 positions, the English department has been reduced by 8. And we are tasked with literacy needs of all members of the district, all students. The Board of Ed supported budget cuts to the curriculum director position and a library media specialist in 2018. And that left one media specialist to go between 2 buildings, unable to offer anything close to the dynamic programming that we had for our students at the high school and middle school. These reductions have a direct impact on the educational experiences of all of our students. When we asked at our accreditation in 2016, in the top 10 commendations, number 4 and number 6 were curriculum director and our media center programming. This matters to me as a teacher, and frankly, I find it devastating as a parent that my older 3 sons enjoyed access to media center programming where they can engage in independent and personalized learning and research, as well as getting technical support and creating projects. My youngest son, all of his peers, and my current students have no such support. If there are positions to be fought for and brought to the towns, it'll be essential to prioritize those positions that have impact on every single student. And I hope that at the forefront of planning next year, the discussion is around rebuilding what we have lost, including CTE courses that are so meaningful and so special and important to a lot of our students. That said, I hope the board will consider engendering goodwill with the towns by honoring the budget presented to the public forum on February 28th, and then join the conversation next year as we look to what programming we can offer our students in a meaningful, thoughtful way, taking into account the needs of all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Please, just need your name and where you're from.
Okay, Michelle Nicholson, and I'm from 20 Richardson Drive in Hebron. A nice woman stopped by the other day. I own the Flower Girl Cafe and Bakery, and I am not speaking to the budget at all because I have no idea when any of that happens, but she asked me if I would support a culinary program in association with my culinary businesses that are in town and asked if I would come and speak to that tonight. So I wanted to just come and say that I do completely support that. I don't know when it makes sense fiscally to do it. That is not something that I have any knowledge of. My kids are not in RHAM yet, or even the junior high school. But if it does come to a spot where the culinary program is able to be open again and the cafe portion of it is able to be open again, I want to make sure that the school board knows that my businesses and all of the assets that I have available to them are in full support of that. We think it would be an incredible asset to our community, to our business community. I would cross-train students. I can offer leadership. I can offer teaching. There's all kinds of things that we can do. I myself started in a vocational culinary program many years ago. And my parents who helped me run my business both have taught in vocational culinary programs. So I'm just a big proponent of it, and I want you to know that as the business community and the other cafe in the town, we would 100% support that. So yeah, that was it.
That's great. Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment? Anyone online for public comment? We're perusing to make sure there's no hands up that we're missing. Eric, are we good? Oop,
Jackie has her hand raised.
I'm sorry.
Jackie.
Jackie, please go ahead.
This is Jacqueline Weatherall, Career and Technical Education Coordinator at RHAM.
Great, thank you.
I'm just going to make one statement around the Family and Consumer Science position that has been discussed at length. I explained at the last meeting the timeline of when all of these administrative decisions happened, and I think that I've done a good job at navigating that entire timeline. And I wanted to just point out that there is student interest. There's been a lack of consistency in how we plan around curriculum, particularly navigating the shift between the previous department coordinator and myself. And I am strongly advocating for this position. However, I did note that it was at the stipulation that there would be no additional cuts to the budget. As far as being thoughtful and doing research and actually really thinking long and hard about this, I will tell you that that is all I have done throughout this process. And I just want the board to understand that this particular position, as I've mentioned before, is extremely important to our school community, not just my department, but I believe it will benefit all students, including our special education population. And I think that it's important that we remind ourselves around providing as many opportunities for our students as we can so that they are excited to come to school, because right now, post-pandemic, our social and emotional piece, as far as our students is concerned, we can see is at great harm right now, and we really need to provide opportunities for our students to be excited to come to school again. So I think that the Family and Consumer Science position, particularly the ECE and the foods program, will benefit our students in the long term. We are also experiencing an overload in the elective classes, and we are going to have to be turning away students in many program areas. So those students are going to need some alternative options for their elective areas. And I do know that the foods and ECE classes are of interest to our student population. And I would strongly support bringing back other areas in the future that we have lost as well. So I appreciate your time tonight, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment, either present or online? No? Okay, Eric is giving me the no. So we'll move on to item 6. Is there any requirement to add or delete agenda items for today's meeting? Good, okay. Move on to item 7, student representative reports. Lily, you want to go ahead?
Nice to see you all. So I don't know if you all are aware, but March 19th, which was this past Saturday, was the official start of the spring sports season. Sports were technically allowed to practice beforehand, but you're like not legally allowed to have a coach there, so it'd be run more like by students or interested parents. So now spring sports would be like baseball, lacrosse, outdoor track, ultimate frisbee, I don't know. And it's times like this, it's like seasons like this where we really get the sting of not having a turf field. In fact, on Saturday, it was a little misty, it was sort of raining out, and teams were forced to be inside, which was unfortunate because you obviously don't really want to have a tryout inside, especially like lacrosse or tennis or anything like that. If we had a turf field, we would probably be able to practice outside, at least for a little bit, but we don't have that luxury, unfortunately. And then this past Thursday, there was the spring concert, which was a success, band and chorus. And I just want to point out the excellent music program that RHAM has, both for band, chorus, and like music tech, music history, music theory, everything like that. It doesn't get praised as much as it should, but honestly, we have some gifted teachers and definitely gifted students in that area. And then you might have seen around the school, we have tons of posters on the wall for different like brands almost. There's an entrepreneurship class that allows students to like create their own brand or create an own activity. They take investments from parents or teachers, and they use that to create a product, and then they sell it to the students. A lot of them are doing clothing items, and others are doing like a basketball tourney, which I think is a really good opportunity for especially like business students to get their foot through the door in terms of like figuring out how all that works. And in terms of like juniors and seniors, it is the beginning of the end of the AP season. For those of you that don't know, AP classes run until early to mid-May. I think the exams start like May 2nd and they run through, I think, almost all of May. And so the curriculum typically stops in the next coming weeks, and then review starts. Sort of a relief for students who don't want to learn anything, but also a little anxiety provoking because that means the exam is coming up. And lastly, it's coming closer to like, I guess, the senior season. Teachers are really trying to get us to pay our class dues, which I think is $30 a year. And that just pays for like shirts, things like prom, our senior outing. And also I got wind today that guests from other schools are going to be allowed at prom, which I think is really great, gives good opportunities for students who have a significant other like in another school, or if they want to bring a friend. And I think that's really awesome, especially since we're making strides in the areas like of COVID and all. So thank you very much.
Great.
So yeah, I just wanted to talk about two fundraiser type things that are coming up. One is a RHAM Cup / food drive that's going on right now. The school culture committee, which is run by Mr. Merrigan, and they're making a food drive, which has helped with advisors are Ms. Schnittman, Mr. Embone, Mrs. Rush, and Miss Allen. They are organizing a food drive throughout the end of March and towards the beginning of April. And they will be collecting, toiletries, food items, etc. And then the winning class will receive an ice cream and yard game social in April. And then there also will be a spring spirit week, and that the winning class of that and the points that were made from the food drive will determine the winner of the RHAM Cup. And then another thing I want to talk about was the Ukrainian fundraiser, and that's set out to support the children in Ukraine. And they have been doing a wonderful job collecting information. As I spoke with Mr. Mader today, he gave me some information regarding numbers that they've gotten so far. So this during the spring concert that took place this past Thursday, they collected $911, and in total through online payments, they have collected $3,421 with the goal of $5,000. So obviously, they have been doing a very good job at collecting money in support for Ukraine. So yeah.
That's great. Okay, thank you. So for the chair report, I'm going to start off with saying that I'm going to have to talk to the future new superintendent about reorganizing this agenda so that I don't have to follow two such well-spoken and informed students because they make me look bad every time. So I guess the first thing I would say is welcome to Mr. McNamara. I appreciate your coming to RHAM and filling in your big shoes to fill. Scott Leslie's done a fantastic job for us here, and we're looking for the same from you. And then the second thing is that we're, I think between now and the next time we have our next meeting, we will have spring break opportunity, which I think is well-deserved or well-earned for students and staff alike. And I just want to wish everybody a happy spring break and a safe one. And look forward to having you all back, like I said, safe and sound. And I hope you get a little bit of sun and some warmth, if that's your plan. Superintendent.
Great, thank you, Mike. And Colin, congratulations as well. You're the luckiest man in the room. You're really very blessed to be able to step into this job. And the board members will notice that there's a small gift for each of you. This is Board of Education Appreciation Month, and so it's a very small gesture. Nonetheless, I don't think anyone appreciates how undervalued our Board of Ed members are, our volunteer Board of Ed members are. I've had the pleasure of working with a number of you, both as principal and superintendent, some of you only as superintendent, some of you as principal and as your students. And again, I cannot tell you how grateful I am for your service, how the remarkable job that you do, sometimes behind the scenes, because tonight is a bit unusual. There's a crowd here. I think that most of you probably think that you toil away with very few people taking notice of what you're actually doing, because we don't tend to get a lot of large audiences. But having said that, you guys really are the bones behind the district. You challenge us to do better. You are incredibly supportive. And I have to say that I don't think throughout my tenure at RHAM, I've worked with boards or been exposed to boards that are so focused on programming for their students, on doing the right thing for their students. So on that, we are all grateful. And again, thank you so much for your efforts on behalf of making RHAM the great school and district that it is. Thank you.
All right, you're going after me too. Okay, so item 10, RHAM supports and interventions for assessing and addressing student social and emotional needs.
So certainly one of the challenges that not just RHAM, but the entire world has faced over the last couple of years during the pandemic is ensuring that we're taking care of our students and our children and providing the social and emotional support that is so critical to well-rounded and healthy students. So this evening, our fantastic school counseling program is going to be presenting the efforts that RHAM has made to assess and intervene and provide support for our students. So I'm going to introduce Christine Hartwig, who will introduce the team and the presentation. Thank you, Christine.
Good evening, everybody. So as Scott said, our counseling staff have been working the last couple of weeks to take a look at the most prevalent and pressing social emotional concerns for students at this moment. And we're also been taking a look at the interventions and strategies that we have in place at RHAM to make sure that we're meeting student needs. The good news is that we have a ton of things that we are doing at RHAM to help meet student needs. But we're going to go into depth this evening as to what the concerns are and what the interventions we have in place here at RHAM to help with that. What I can say as someone who's been at RHAM for 13 plus years is that The counseling staff are some of the hardest working people you'll ever meet. They are knowledgeable and they are thorough. They follow through with students, and they collaborate, and they truly care about our kids. So tonight we have 6 of our counseling providers, a variety of positions and titles, and they're going to be providing you with that information. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Lori Connors and Jennifer Mott are our school counseling coordinators. We have Allie Hoagland, who is a high school counselor. We have Carol Rush, who is a school psychologist. We have Ryan Gotti, who is an AHM counselor. And we have Allie Hoagland, and Alicia Gove, I'm sorry, I said Allie. Alicia Gove is our middle school counselor and team leader. So I'll have them come up and start the presentation.
Great.
Mike, it would be great if we could see them. Is there a way
Yes.
to?
Sorry, Eric is working on it, trying to get the presentation up. Is that right?
Yeah, it's not working well.
Oh,
Sorry. Give us 1 second, Sue.
okay. I could see her now.
Are you having a hard time displaying?
It's not letting me share the presentation. I can pull it up, but it won't let me share it with Google Meet. I'm not sure why.
Is there somebody that can reshare it? Of course, you don't have your computer.
For everybody online, if you just be patient for 1 moment, we're just trying to work through a technical difficulty so that we can make sure we can share the presentation with everybody.
I think I can do just the tab, I think.
You're good? Sue, can you, somebody online,
Yep.
can you?
I could see it. I could see it. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
All right, good evening. I'm Jennifer Mott. Thank you for providing us with this opportunity to present to you this evening. We'd like to provide an overview of the distribution of our support staff. So overall, we have 9 school counselors, 6 at the high school and 3 at the middle school. Each high school counselor has approximately 160 students on their caseload, and middle school counselors have approximately 120 on their caseload. These ratios really allow us to get to know our students and provide quality programming that focuses on their academic and personal growth, as well as post-secondary planning. RHAM is also fortunate to have our connection with AHM, providing both the middle school and high school with a valuable counselor position and partnership with community resources. So each AHM counselor has approximately 40 students on their caseload. We have 2 full-time school psychologists at the high school, and there's a 1 full-time position and a 1.6 position at the middle school. And each school psychologist has approximately 40 students on their caseload. We're also fortunate to have a full-time social worker who supports approximately 25 students while also providing support to our resilience program. What is noteworthy is that on average, about 30% of each school counselor's caseload consists of students with either individualized education plans or 504 plans. School counselors serve as case managers for these 504 plans and check in with students as needed or either weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly as prescribed in the student's plan. School counselors also meet quarterly with students with IEPs to review and discuss their post-secondary goals. So in terms of statistics, we have some enrollment data here that progresses from 2019 all the way to this current school year. So the 3-year distribution of support plans shows that students with 504 plans and IEPs have remained consistent. Our support staff continually monitor and collaborate, and students continue to be identified as appropriate. So you can see those percentages there in the individual boxes. And down below in the graphic, we highlight the STEP program and the resilience programs and those numbers. RHAM STEP program has also maintained consistent numbers over this 3-year period. This program provides a structured environment with individualized interventions and instructions to foster success for students with chronic academic, emotional, or behavioral difficulties. And then our resilience program has grown incrementally the past few years. This program offers a smaller, more structured setting for students experiencing difficulty with school avoidance and school-related anxiety. The goal is to provide various support so students can gradually resume a full schedule in their least restrictive environment.
Good evening. I'm Lori Connors, Middle School Counseling Coordinator. So as a team, we discussed and identified these items as our most significant COVID-related concerns during the past few years. First and foremost, mental health concerns have increased, especially for students with pre-existing family issues. Concerns about the removal of masks and how it may impact the health and safety of individuals and the community. Concerns about the immunocompromised students and family members. Navigating the transition back to an 8-period schedule and the ability to maintain academic rigor and focus in classes following our virtual, hybrid, and block schedules. The interruption of social life and extracurricular activities leading to isolation and depression. Concerns from unvaccinated students about being discriminated against for their choices. Students becoming overwhelmed by their makeup work after extended absences due to quarantining. Many students express anxieties about their family's finances, such as paying for utility bills, groceries, due to parents' loss of income and diminishing resources and hardships. And lastly, heightened stress from students and parents over the college application process and repercussions from COVID on grades and student transcripts.
Hello, my name is Ryan Gutty. I'm the AHM high school counselor. So on top of just COVID-related things, our students go through quite a bit on a day-to-day basis to begin with. Some of these things have been impacted even more because of COVID, but all of our students are in that phase of life and they're figuring out their identity, who they are, and where they want to go from here, which causes a lot of stress. Also, mental health symptoms such as anxiety, depression, ADHD can cause issues with wanting to come to school or avoiding classes in general. There's also been an increase in the amount of students we're seeing because of anxiety, panic attacks, just anxiety symptoms related to how they're feeling, even physical symptoms. There's a higher need for support for our students with how to cope with what's going on in their lives, and we see them in counseling sessions to help them figure that out as well. High family stress is impacting their overall academic performance and social emotional well-being, whether it's divorce, new family dynamics, changing to new schools, anything along those lines. Of course, our teenagers are also struggling with peer relationships, friends, dating, and the likes. Social media is a big issue we see across the board for students, whether it's bullying online or just navigating how to be appropriate online. There's also an increase in identified diagnoses, either it's physical or mental, that can impact their academic performance, their self-esteem, and other things. We have seen some barriers in how we help our students lately. A lot of that is due to COVID, but other things are just higher needs of mental health support. So COVID-related stressors, financial and emotional, impact the families and their kids. We've also seen a huge lack of availability of recommended outside resources, whether that's outpatient therapy or, hospitalization. If our kids need to go to the hospital, they're being turned away, sent home, which puts a lot of worry in our hearts for them. There's long wait lists for telehealth, for in-person, and any other kind of mental health resource they may need. Many providers are virtual right now, and although some people are okay with that, some are not, and that might be a struggle for them to attend online therapy sessions especially with the lack of privacy from meeting their therapist in home. There can be concerns about stigma for mental health, and it may block some of our students from getting those services that they need to. Some mental health professionals are not accepting insurance right now, or they might not be able to find a mental health professional that does accept their insurance, which means that our families are paying out of pocket for therapy, which can get very pricey. And families may struggle with the balance of how to get their child to therapy. You know, it can be transportation issues, working, or other concerns.
Hi, I'm Allie Hoagland. I'm a counselor at the high school. And now that you've seen the context for what we're looking at as far as COVID-related and non-COVID-related concerns and the barriers that we're observing in students accessing support, we wanted to pivot and talk about what we're doing as far as a district when it comes to strategies and interventions. I think first it's important to note that we're uniquely positioned to provide comprehensive and systematic support to students and families. Being a 7 through 12 district, we can focus on the developmental needs of adolescents and all the changes that are going on and look at what we can do throughout. I think it also helps that we have an adjoined building, which lays a nice framework for collaboration and communication across the grade levels. So looking at strategies and interventions, looking directly at the individuals first and their families. So we have frequent and intentional opportunities for staff to discuss concerns and collaborate on responses with services and interventions. So we meet weekly in core meetings and then once a month in SRBI or scientific research-based intervention meetings to discuss student concerns. And these groups are comprised of administration, school counselors, school psychologists, as well as social workers. Additionally, we have many opportunities to monitor student attendance and grades as key indicators of students struggling with their emotional well-being. And then we also have many opportunities to collaborate with teachers in the classroom who are seeing these students on a day-to-day basis and opportunities for them to express their concerns so we may provide support and respond. We also have a very accessible student support services team. So that means, we have school counselors, school social workers, and school psychologists that are readily available to all of our student population, not just for students who have identified needs through 504 plans and IEPs. Additionally, at the high school level, all of our school counselors have online appointment calendars that students and families can access to create appointments. And in the digital age, we're all available by email as well. Once a need is identified, we also have very organized and accessible information about therapeutic providers in our community. So we have reached out to those local providers to see right now, especially with the mental health crisis, who has availability, what they specialize in, and then what kinds of insurance program or insurance plans they accept to help find the best fit for students and families. Once we have created that link between a student and family and an outside provider, we also work to ensure that we have a record release form on file so that we can collaborate with these outside providers to ensure that we're meeting the needs of the student and have a comprehensive plan between in school and out of school. And then lastly, we do have students who have even more specialized needs, so we make direct referrals to outside programs such as Community Health Resources or CHR to help provide more intensive in-home programming, as well as after-school programs. Looking a bit broader, we also offer many prevention and intervention programs at the middle and high school level. We have the Power of Words program at middle school and high school, as well as the Smoker Cessation program. We also work collaboratively with RHAM to provide a summer girls empowerment camp. And then we have social and support groups available at the middle and high school level for specified needs. And then to broaden that lens even more, as a district, we have many opportunities for staff to engage in social emotional learning, professional development, We have training that ranges from the CPI or Crisis Prevention Institute, de-escalation staff training, QPR, which is question, persuade, refer, suicide prevention staff training. All of our staff participates in DCF mandated reported training. We have risk assessment training for student support services staff particularly. And we also have student support services personnel who participate in the social emotional learning committee as well as the school culture committee to be part of those valuable conversations about what's going on in our school committee and what ideas are being generated and what we can do to implement those ideas. So I'm going to turn it over to Alicia to talk specifically about the middle school.
Hi, I'm Alicia Gold, middle school counselor. So like Allie said, that was kind of what we do as a district, or what we offer as a district, but I'm gonna break it down a little bit into the middle school and what we do in addition to the district. So our support staff attends team meetings for collaboration at least 2 times a week, sometimes more when it's needed. So that's a chance for us to get to meet with our team teachers and talk about students and collaborate and formulate plans to better assist them. We have high school peer tutors and mentors available to students. So if we see a student struggling in a specific academic area or many academic areas or socially, emotionally, we typically reach out to the high school counselors and they help us coordinate a tutor or a mentor for our students at the middle school. Teachers, our team teachers attend daily team meetings to discuss student social and academic concerns and create plans to address those concerns. We have started this year monthly wellness checks. Last year during COVID, we did do bi-weekly wellness checks because we felt that was super necessary at that point in time. This year we have broken it down into monthly wellness checks, and those have actually been super helpful in identifying students who are in need. There have been kids who have reached out to us via those check-ins. And it's also a great way for us to see. One of our questions is like, what are you looking forward to? Or do you have anything else to share? And sometimes kids will just write, no, thank you, but thanks for checking in on me. Or, you know, we'll email them and be like, hey, I heard you got a new puppy, which there were a lot of new puppies during the pandemic. Just saying. So it's been really cool us being able to like get in touch with our students and keep in touch and find kids that are in need. So. Group counseling, that's something that we started this year. We really started to look at the pandemic and think about, you know, what kids might have been experiencing during the pandemic and what we might see coming into the school year. And we kind of formulated our groups around that, but not only that. So we offer groups on social skills, organization, understanding anxiety. We had a new student group this year, healthy relationships. We're kind of, I don't want to say flying by the seat of our pants, but if something comes up, we're trying to address it and formulate a group as needed when we can. We also have started lunch groups this year, which has been pretty fun. Again, that's kind of on the fly. If a student comes down and asks for a lunch group, we try to oblige, especially with the 8th graders because they don't always love lunch groups. So there's some counselors. But I tried, but we have had lunch groups that are specific to boys, specific to girls, about healthy relationships. Sometimes we're utilizing the Second Step program that was new this year and kind of supplementing those lunch groups and our social groups. And then we also have check-ins with students who have been absent due to COVID. So if a student has been absent for a significant amount of time, due to COVID, we have at our team meetings that comes up in conversation, and the teachers reach out to those students and help formulate a plan for when they come back. Or when they come back, we as school counselors also check in with students who have been out for a long period of time, just to make sure that they do have a plan and just reinforce what teachers have offered to them and encourage them to get back on track. So. And then just because the monthly check-ins are new, this is just a little snapshot of kind of where we're at from September to our last check-in in February. We've had a 10% increase in the number of responses, which was pretty good throughout the year. We're pretty excited about that. An 11% increase in students feeling great, which is awesome. Considering everything that they went through during COVID, coming back to school and the adjustment. We were pretty excited to see that. a 9% increase in students who have daily schedules now. That was a big issue during COVID. We saw a lot of kids struggling, not knowing how to manage their time, not having schedules, staying up all night, on the Xbox, whatever. Students seem to be kind of getting it back under control now. They do have daily schedules. A 15% increase in student activity, which is amazing. We're so happy to see the kids involved again and doing things and participating in sports and clubs. And then a 10% increase in students who feel they have an adult to reach out to, whether that's in the building or outside of school. We just found that it was really important to know that students feel connected to somebody and have that trusted adult to go to. And a 0.9% of students report that things are tough each month. So great, that's not awesome, but 0.9 is pretty good, I think. So we are really trying to closely monitor that. With our wellness checks, if any student reports that they're feeling met or that things are tough, we do reach out to them, we pull them into our offices. If they're out for COVID, we send them an email, just try to reach out somehow. So, and then at the bottom, things that students reported looking forward to, and this is from the beginning of the year until February. The one thing I will say about this is it just makes me so happy because a lot of the things that are on this list that they're looking forward to were a lot of the things that they were reporting missing during COVID. So it's nice to see that kids are kind of getting back into the swing of things, doing the things that they missed, like visiting families, going to the gym, participating in sports, going on vacations. So that's been really great to see too.
Hi, I'm Carol Rush. I'm the school psychologist for the high school. The strategies and interventions that we have at the high school are mental health bulletin board with resources listing therapy, hotline numbers, and educational pieces that they can read about. RHAM Smart Recovery, that is a substance abuse counseling and support group that we offer. Peer helpers and peer tutors, having peers help their fellow students with academics as well as emotional support. Social and support groups for students, such as healthy relationship and social skills groups. Supporting connections between students and extracurricular activities, including athletics and clubs such as SOAR, the School Culture Committee, and the RHAM Best Buddies. And our latest addition is the Therapy Dog program. I had proposed this program early on in the year, and I was lucky enough to have it approved by administration. We really thought that having a therapy dog would really bring joy and support to our students, and it's been overwhelming. The kids and the adults in the building really benefit from that. They just light up when Barnabas the dog comes through. I had a survey put out, is the pet therapy program beneficial? Do you think having the pet therapy program is beneficial for RHAM, the students and faculty? And 94.9% said yes. So that was a wonderful thing to see. Another question was, should the program continue going forward after this year? And 90.8% said yes. Some of the feedback and the breakdowns are, before the therapy dog came to visit, 15.8% said that they felt happy. 57 students, or 29%, said they were sad or depressed. 43% said that they were anxious. 25% said they were frustrated. 12% said they were angry. Only 14 students, or 7%, said that they were relaxed. 123 students said that they were stressed, or 62%. And 24% were agitated. After the therapy dog came to visit, they were asked how they felt. 147 students, or 75%, said they were happy. Only 6 students, or 3%, said they were still sad or depressed. Only 5.6% said that they were sad or depressed, and that was compared to 29% before the dog came. Only 1% said that they were still frustrated, and that was 25% before the dog came. They had feelings of relaxed, less stressed, calm, and all positive feelings. That says a lot. Some of the student and teacher feedback said, one child reported, "You are my antidepressant. I am instantly happy when I see him. I need this. I feel my depression lifting. He helps me with my depression. I have seen a therapy dog bring joy and comfort to many of the students. I always feel better after seeing him." This says a lot. So that's one big program that we brought to the school. And I know that the middle school is looking forward to having them visit as well. The resilience program really benefits. Many students say that they come in because of the dog and that they would rather not come at all. So we see a lot of positive benefits from this program and the other programs that we are supporting here at the school.
Hello again. Barnabas is a tough act to follow. But we, at the high school level, we also created in the school counseling department a survey to help gauge the emotional well-being of our students. The survey was distributed by email, and students were encouraged but not required to respond. And we were very pleased with the results and the engagement that we had. We had over a third of students respond, and I know that may not sound like much, but to be honest, students are getting so many emails and bombarded really. So to have that much engagement with it, we were very pleased about. The responses were pretty balanced as far as grade-wise goes and were proportionate to class sizes. Additionally, the responses were representative of counselor caseload distribution. Questions on the survey looked at, like I said, students' emotional well-being, connectedness with adults at school and at home, which we know can be an indicator of students' well-being, and then feelings about academic performance. One of the survey questions included something along the lines of most days, how are you feeling? And they saw a picture of this grid, colorful grid up at the top. And if you're not familiar with it, this is the Yale Mood Meter. And this is something that students are familiar with from professional development opportunities that our staff had in years past with the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. So this grid is posted all around our schools, and students are able to recognize different emotions. The colors kind of can be associated with positive versus negative emotions, and it's really a talking point between students and staff. So we included it in our survey so it was a familiar thing for them to respond to. And 76.3% of students reported feeling positive emotions identified on the Yale Mood Meter. So examples, I know that may be hard to see. Examples of positive emotions are connected, joyful, and balanced. On the flip side, 23.7% of students did respond that on most days they are feeling a negative emotion. And examples of that are anxious, concerned, sad, and fatigued. So the survey data also revealed that 93.8% of students are able to identify a trusted adult in the building. 95.6% of students agreed they have a way to reach out to adults at home or at school. We inquired if students would be interested in getting more resources and strategies to help their mental health and emotional well-being, and 13.7% of students did respond they were interested in that. We also inquired about students' interest in getting resources and strategies to help with their academic performance, and 19% of students responded they had interest in this as well. And last but not least, 62.3% of students felt they were proud or very proud of their first semester grades. And this information is very helpful and valuable to our school counseling department as we're able to individually connect with students based on their responses to the survey as soon as we sent it out, we were getting those responses and we would be checking in with each other, looking and, seeing what the feedback was. And we were immediately able to meet with students who identified that they were in those negative emotion grids. We were able to immediately work with students who maybe weren't able to identify a trusted adult in the building or at home. So it's really opened up the door to more conversations individually with students. And then from a school-wide perspective, we're able to look at this data to identify trends and kind of inform future programming for students as well. So we're looking forward to doing more of this going forward. That concludes our presentation. Again, we value the opportunity to be able to talk about what we're doing in the school, especially considering how challenging things have been over the last few years with the pandemic. And then we'll welcome questions now.
Go ahead, Eric.
How does the role of the school psychologist differ from that of a school?
Can you bring the board back up?
Do you want to explain to that?
Sure. A school psychologist does evaluations for special education placement. We also do projectives, cognitive testing. We do intensive counseling through the IEP, whereas maybe the counselors will not see a student on an IEP, but maybe through a 504. Those are the big differences. We attend the PBTs for special education as well. Our training is a little bit different because of our background in testing.
Do we have a school social worker here tonight? No. Could that person maybe say what that's about?
Sure. So I'm not a licensed social worker. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. It's just a different version of a therapist. So the differences between my role and Carol Rush's is that I focus mainly on counseling. So I do, mental health counseling with the students, help them with any type of either anxiety, depression, or struggles they may be having in their life, whether big or small. And I do not do any type of educational testing, so strictly counseling.
Anyone else on the board, questions? Actually had one. I love the survey data, was fantastic. Question was, when was the last point where data was taken in, like what date approximately?
So it was the end of the first semester.
So is that like the end of February or?
Yeah, it's the end of January, beginning of February.
Okay, so I guess the one thing that honestly, it's unfortunate, like, first of all, I don't want to bum everybody out, but because I love the feedback and I love the fact that it's all trending in the right direction. I think the one thing I'm concerned about is current events. We haven't really faced some of the discussion that's going on right now since 1962. And so I can't help but think, I know from my own students that live in my house, that there's a lot of questions going on. And I'm just curious if you've gotten any feedback, anybody reach out to you concerned about, current events that are, yeah.
I know middle school, I can speak for that. There have been, we're just starting to see, and the kids are starting to talk and ask more questions. We have another wellness catch-up coming up at the end of March, so we'll see what comes out of that. I'm sure we'll get more. But yeah, it definitely is starting to pop up a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard to see such frankly devastating things on TV every single day and or in news and radio and everything else and escape it. So genuinely concerned that that's going to become another one of the issues that you guys have to deal with. But thank you guys for everything that you do. Really appreciate it.
A lot of the students are being encouraged to, take some action and gather, goods and clothes, things like that. And that really makes them feel like they're, contributing to making it a more, positive place in some small way.
Love the poster. I saw it in the middle school when I picked my son up one day this week. So awesome.
I didn't have a question, but
I've made comments in other meetings. I just want to say thank you for your phenomenal work as a department. So I've already seen Alicia in action when my son broke his arm this fall, and you contacted me. I didn't have to reach out to anybody. And I just think that shows how attentive the group is. And Jennifer, you and I have already met, and my son has yet to step foot in high school. But you've already been so helpful already and so willing and welcoming. So, you know, you're here, so I just want to say it out loud. I've said it at previous meetings, but just think your department's phenomenal and awesome on the therapy dog. I need to go get mine certified.
Okay.
Wonderful.
I think Judy's.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jude.
Hi, everyone. I just really wanted to thank you for that presentation and the comprehensive nature of it and the different things that you're doing. I have always revered your departments and everything that you've done. And the one thing I want to say to you, though, is please make sure you're taking care of yourselves as well, because we know how draining this is on all of you. And it's easy to not give yourself the care that you do. So I hope, you know, make sure that you're doing that and caring for each other too, please.
Fair. Okay. Thank you very much, Ollie.
Yeah, thank you all very
Thank you,
much.
Roy. All right, so move on to the consent agenda. Board of Ed meetings from our previous meeting, February 28th, are closed, as well as the approval of minutes from the public forum. Can we get a motion do we need to do those separately?
You can do it actually, the consent agenda can be done as one motion to approve both the minutes and the, in this case, the resignation letter. Or you can choose to do it separately.
Well, that's fine. Why don't we talk about the resignation letter first, and then we can do the motion.
The resignation letter is from one of our current PE health teachers, Tiffany Giannini, who had requested and was provided with an unpaid leave this year. And so she's resigning from her position at the end of this year. So.
All right.
And my recommendation would be that we accept the motion to accept the resignation.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Sue Stolfi, I make a motion to accept 11.1 and 11.2 in the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Dr. Benson Clark. And then any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Consent agenda is approved. Old business. Discussion and possible action of proposed Region 8 2022-2023 budget, the enclosure 12.1.
So we have a few things that the board needs to act on tonight. And then certainly any board members welcome to make any further recommendations. Just in terms of the timing, this is the last scheduled meeting prior to the public forum on April 4th. And the way that process will work is we'll begin that evening with a public forum in the auditorium. I'll present the budget essentially as it leaves the room this evening. Members of the public are certainly welcome and encouraged to ask questions and provide any thoughts, recommendations. Once the forum is complete, we'll come back into this room, and this will be that would be your last opportunity to make any changes in the budget. And essentially that evening you will be adopting what will no longer be my proposed budget, but it will be the adopted board budget, which will then go to referendum on May 3rd. So, could we start with the reductions? There we go. Okay. So there's one slide here that is a gift that requires no action on your part, and then the next slide would require some action on the board's part. In terms of insurance, I think as everyone recognizes we're part of the insurance consortium that includes each of the school districts within our region, as well as the towns of Andover, Hebron, Marlborough, and RHAM. We had earlier in the budget process, because the consortium is so healthy and our bank account is so healthy, we actually reduced the cost of insurance by 4% earlier in the process. Consortium met last week and reduced it another 2%. So we're actually looking at a full 6% reduction, which, as any of you that have worked in insurance know, is almost, maybe is unheard of.
Yep.
That's an insurance unicorn.
Yes, it's, I don't think people would blink an eye out of a, 20% increase, and here we are decreasing by 6%. So what that equates to is a reduction of $35,721. We are adding, because the budget is still fluid at this point, one of the programs that we discovered as we move into the spring, the Ultimate Frisbee program that had some money designated for buses, but didn't have enough to ensure that we were able to provide enough buses to bring them to each of their 4 off-site competitions. So we are adding $4,200 into the budget for next year to cover the full cost of buses for the Ultimate Frisbee team. What this equates to is a decrease of 0.77%. So this takes us from where we were at 0.67 and brings us to 0.77%. There's no motion required for that because that's happening. The next slide includes a list of items which are in your budget, and I'd have you refer to in your budget package 12.1. Yeah, near the front. And yes, before all of Viva's financial statements. So it's right at the front of that. And what this slide represents is a further recommended reduction of $97,813 from next year's proposed budget. And we get to this by doing pre-purchasing of these one-time purchased items out of this year's, the money that we have available for this year. And, I think it's good budgeting to take money that we have available to reduce the budget. What I think is even a bigger sign that this is a good practice and why I would highly recommend this is that it will reduce next year's budget by $97,813, but already from the time I first proposed these items to actually purchasing them, it's going to cost us $100,183 from this year's budget. Prices obviously have gone up everywhere. I think it's prudent to purchase them now, reduce next year's budget, and again, it'll save money in the long run because if we left them in next year's budget, their prices are likely going to go up anyway, and so we end up paying more. So my proposal here would be that the board consider making a motion to approve the reduction of $97,813 and the pre-purchase transfer of funds totaling $100,183.10 out of this year's budget. Doing so will result in a combined reduction of operating and capital down to a negative 1.09% decrease over the current year. I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
I have a question.
Sure.
Just on the 2 textbooks, does purchasing them this year, is it 1/2 dozen to another, purchasing them now versus August for September?
So on the Azulo textbooks, if you see the $1,200, if you look at the transfer sheet, the cost is now $6,954.
Yep, sorry, my question was, does this buy us the latest date of print? Or like, is next year updated and we're buying this year's and so it's
No,
behind,
I'm
or
not,
is it relevant?
I think it's irrelevant, but the world language department coordinators who chose the textbooks that they wanted to purchase, so she's purchasing what she feels is relevant for her classes at the moment, so.
Okay.
I didn't ask if they were the most recent copy or if they're a year behind, but.
I think if it was a matter of needing the most recent and if they were going to be updated, because they're not updated every year.
No.
I don't think she would have included it on the list, because this was also done in conjunction with our coordinator, so, yeah, we didn't pull things out that we thought that, without consultation with everybody, yeah.
Thank you. Being so close, I assumed if they were updated, it'd be done by now,
Yeah,
but just.
Sorry, just bear with me. I'm just going through this list myself as well.
Thank you for doing this work to find these other places, Scott and Eva.
Thank you, well, we're happy to do it.
Okay. Is there any other questions or discussion?
It's a great idea.
Yeah. Nice work.
Okay. Is there a proposal or a motion?
I'm gonna trip over the proper word.
We'll help you.
But maybe I'll start by saying how thrilled I am with this. We just met with Scott knows, Scott presented.
Eric, it's almost impossible to hear you.
We just met with the Andover Board of Finance, Scott presented, and the question comes up, gee, when are we going to see those reductions? And this represents a real reduction. And so I'm really happy and thankful for the work that's been done to pull the spending into this year's budget where there was room for it, so that we're able to present a budget to the townspeople that is over 1%, which is, there are very few things that go down around here. So it's a solid accomplishment. And see it. So having said that, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the proposed $97,813 reduction to next year's budget by spending
I second that.
$183.10 out of this year's budget.
Okay. I got Eric as the motion, Dr. Benson Clark is the second.
I have a discussion. I would like to echo, and Eric, thank you so that we could hear you. That was important. I would like to echo what Eric said. I went to all 3 Marlboro meetings, 2 Board of Finance and 1 Selectmen, the Hebron Board of Finance meeting and the Andover Board of Finance meeting. And Scott and Eva, you were so gracious and really shared the budgets in a very thoughtful way and listened to everyone. And I feel very good going forward in this budget season. So thank you everyone for that. And I think any additions that we have certainly make sense. And Rosemary Mead, I think very, very highly of, and I think those things need to be right already. We start budgeting for next year tomorrow, right? So they need to be in next year's budget, because I remember crying when we lost our media center person, Jerry Deneen, and when we lost the curriculum coordinator position with Lauren. They were just so valuable, and they added such quality. So we heard that as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All right. Since it's a financial one, we'll do a roll call. So we'll call a vote. Lori?
Yep.
Mike?
Yes.
Dr. Benson Clark?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Jessica? I think Jessica had to leave.
Yes,
Carrie?
Jess signed off.
Yeah. Carrie?
Yes.
Thank you. Gabe?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
Great, and I vote yes as well. All right, that motion is carried.
Great, fantastic. And I want to thank Eva and the coordinators for their hard work in identifying those items that really lend themselves to do this. So appreciate that. So I was asked to relook at the early childhood position that was added only because the number of requests that received. So what I have here is kind of an updated overview, and I know I shared this with the board a couple of weeks ago. You can go to the next slide here. In terms of the numbers of requests, so Chris and Penny have been working with Jackie in terms of looking at what the numbers of requests are, and then Chris is anxious for us to come to a resolution on this so he can start the scheduling process tomorrow. And the coordinators can start building the schedule for next year. So in terms of Food 1, we have 51 requests, which would equate to 3 sections of classes. For Foods 2, we have 3 requests. We would not run a class with only 3 requests. For the early childhood, we have 31 requests, which would be 2 sections. For early childhood 2, we have 6, although, and then now this is getting into kind of the scheduling geekdom of things. We know that when we begin scheduling for these programs, that not all of these students will be able to fit them into their schedule, particularly when they start to compete against other courses that the students want. So with those requests, Chris would typically look at 0.5, a 0.5 FTE position as opposed to the full-time. So 3 options. One is kind of out of the box, but I was asked to, let's see, can we get creative here? So if you go to the next slide here, the 1.0 full-time computers, family and consumer science position, certainly the benefit is that it does maintain the early childhood and foods programming, which I think, and adds the food programming. So we're maintaining the really early childhood, which we put on hold because of inability to find the teacher. But this provides that programming and it adds the foods back into the mix. And I think that was the intent of the original proposal. Obviously, the challenge is that staffing levels are not aligned with these students. We don't have enough students to fully support a full-time position.
Scott, is that because these are half-year courses?
Mm-hmm. Right, these are all half-year courses, right. And then the next, so if it was a part-time position, we believe that it supports a 0.5 FTE position. Certainly the benefits is it continues, it provides students with access to both the early childhood and the foods programming. And it certainly retains options for future programming expansion. Some of the challenges are, as I mentioned earlier, as the schedule begins to get built and students are put into the schedule, there will inevitably be some conflicts with other singletons. So a singleton in scheduling terms is a course that's only offered once. So rather than English 9, which there may be 8 sections, so we have one offered every period, so every kid that needs it gets it. Some of these courses may only be offered once. So if I am interested in band and one of these courses is scheduled at the same time as band, then obviously the student needs to make choices. That happens every year. That's the natural course of building the schedule. I think as we've talked at length about the challenge of hiring a half-time teacher,
Students may not get other requests, but so if we aren't able to hire a teacher and put students into a program, the students then run the risk of not getting the electives that they had originally wanted when they had scheduled this, if these courses get canceled. And we are seeing impacts on some other areas. So for example, we had 20 students who withdrew from art classes to take these, so we are seeing some impacts on other areas. The out-of-the-box proposal, we currently have students taking early childhood through virtual high school, and they're partnered with our preschool program already, so they have to do practicum, so they're doing their practicum at our preschool. So we do have 4 students that are currently choosing to do that. And for those of you who haven't heard of virtual high school, it's a program that's been around for many, many years. And the way that virtual high school works is a school essentially buys a subscription or pays for a subscription each year, and they receive 25 seats. Virtual high school offers over 300 different courses. The catch is, for the typical subscription, is that you have to have one of your teachers teaching a virtual high school course. That kind of lets you in. So we started a number of years ago with Candy Bubendorf, one of our social studies teachers, teaching a virtual high school course. So in her 5-period classes each day, one of her classes is a virtual high school class. She may not have any RHAM students in that class, but what it allows us to do is it allows 25 seats each semester for our own students to take virtual high school classes. And students are taking courses that we don't offer. They're taking courses that the conflicts are impossible enough where they're not able to take it, even if it is offered here. Candy does occasionally have students from RHAM, but it's rare. In order for a teacher to be eligible to teach in virtual high school, they have to be trained, and there's a cost to that, unless they choose to teach an in-demand course, and that's exactly what Candy did. So it didn't cost the district anything, and that bought us 25 seats. I wouldn't want to use up those seats with any one program. So one option would be to expand our virtual high school offerings. You can do that one of 2 ways. You can buy another 25 seats subscription, it's $8,000 a year. We'd have to get a teacher certified in time to teach it. I don't think that's totally realistic at this point, but you can also pay per class. There's a $450 fee per class. So one option would be to purchase enough or budget enough money so that we could purchase additional seats for students interested in taking the program. It would allow us to continue to offer virtual early childhood education courses. We'd continue the academic partnership with RHAM through the Kinderama program. Does retain few options for future program expansion. It eliminates the hiring challenges, certainly reduces the number of scheduling challenges student has, and it reduces the likelihood that students are going to be coming from other elective areas to take this, because students often can take this above and beyond the courses that they're already taking since they're online. It's not a perfect solution by any ways, in that students would not have the option to take foods courses. So this would be focused just on early childhood. Virtual high school doesn't offer a foods class for obvious reasons. It is an online program, and not every student is looking for an online program. I think what makes this somewhat uniquely different, though, is that the students are using our preschool as a practicum. So there is an in-person component to it. Just to look at the budgetary implications of each of the programs, the addition of the full-time teacher was $85,000. If we eliminated that and added a half-time position, it would be about $45,000. And if we instead went with budgeting enough money so that all of the students interested in early childhood would be able to take that option, it would be about $13,500. That wouldn't, those extra courses too wouldn't just be limited to early childhood. Any of the 300 would be certainly available to teachers. It would also, budgeted for next year, if that continued, it would allow us to look at, as we see some decreasing enrollment, chances of possibly getting a teacher who may have less courses to teach, trained in virtual high school to continue to provide some variety. So, that could be a component of the discussion that certainly is going to ensue with the new superintendent. Moving forward, how do we support our elective programs in the face of decreasing enrollment? And, that's going to have to be a thorough discussion, obviously, as Mary Rose mentioned, with non-teaching courses as well, the curriculum director and the media center specialist. How do you manage bringing those back into the budget while at the same time managing the decreasing enrollment? So.
Scott, can I ask a question?
Sure.
How many students in a given year fill up those 25 seats? Do you know?
I'm going to look at Penny and Chris. Do you guys know offhand? We don't fill all 25 seats.
It varies, I think. It just depends on what students are looking for, like 10 or 12 maybe.
So like over the last 3 or 5 years, each year it'd be between 10 and 12 approximately. Like, is it around then? Or,
Per semester.
I know it obviously fluctuates, but per semester.
Any other questions? I have a few. So I think when we first had gotten some initial feedback on these classes, we had it was less than what we're looking at on this current breakout, right? So it was something closer to 0.3 or 0.4, is that right? So I guess, bear with me because I don't understand the scheduling. I don't understand the scheduling voodoo as well as everybody else here, but so how many students have yet to finalize their schedule that would potentially end up in one of these categories?
Right now, I'm looking at Chris because obviously I want to make sure that I'm confirming.
The counselors have told me that just about all students have solidified their requests, which is consistent with where we would normally be at this point.
So we wouldn't expect the numbers to change significantly at this point.
Okay. And we have had applications for the position as posted at 1.0.
We do have some applications, yes.
Okay. And so I guess the second question is that this is probably simple, but in order to take Foods 2 and Early Childhood 2, you would have had to have completed Foods 1 and Early Childhood 1. All right. And when's the last time we actually conducted a Foods 1 and an Early Childhood 1 class?
Early childhood.
Early childhood would have been last year. Foods, I believe, was 2017, 18.
But they could take Foods 1 or ECE 1 during semester 1 of next year and take ECE 2 or Foods 2 second semester, and the students did have that choice to also.
Okay, so you're saying that so the people that were signed up 51 and 31 that signed up for Early Childhood Foods 1 and Early Childhood 1, that same number did not opt to sign up for Foods 2 or Early Childhood 2?
It was only like 2 or 3 students who opted to sign up for the second version.
Any thoughts on why that is?
Probably wanting to take other electives because we do have a wide variety of electives to take.
Okay. I'm sorry, is there anybody online that has questions? Who's Eric? Go ahead, Sue.
Is the counselor still in the audience or no?
We have one.
Couple of them.
We have a couple.
Yeah, I guess the question that you asked Mike about, kids moving into it, I'm curious to know what their thoughts are, because I believe they're the ones that are taking the responsibility right now helping the students enroll in this, since it's not a class that's on Power School that could be registered for. And I believe the counselors are the ones taking the lead with this. Is that correct?
We would be, yes.
Maybe a little louder, I'm sorry.
Sorry, yes, we would be. Are you asking about the logistics of what would happen for next steps?
Yeah, I guess I'm asking what your thoughts are around the chances of the more interest in the positions than what we're seeing on the screen in the presentation that was showed to us.
Right, that's a great question. I mean, the students had an opportunity to complete the survey. It's just a matter of whether or not, you know, anyone ends up changing their minds, or if there's any other changes moving forward. It's just one of those things hard to forecast, but the students were given an opportunity to, you know, let us know if they would like to take the class or classes.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or? Okay, I guess the next question is are there any motions for this?
Well, is this really on the agenda to make a motion?
I think so.
Yeah, it's under the budget. Discussion and possible action under the budget.
Where are we currently now?
Well, we're at 1.0.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So before I guess we go to any potential motions, and maybe this is a discussion thought, but I guess I'll just maybe thinking out loud. Recognizing the fact that there is a full half FTE worth of students that have physically signed up for these opportunities, this definitely communicates that it's a little more than actually what we had anticipated or predicted going into the budget last year, which was at 0.4. So there's somewhat of an increase, at least based on the data so far. There's a minor increase in interest. And we've had at least one person that has applied for the position who, you know, can't guarantee that they will be deemed qualified, but have potentially could be qualified to teach both the foods and the early childhood education. I think, I mean, I guess it comes down to the decision or the, you know, potential for a motion is, do you want to tell 53 kids or 82 kids that we're not going to conduct the class that they signed up for? Or do we want to try to thread the needle and figure out how to conduct that foods one and early childhood one? And I don't like hope as a method, but hope that the person that has applied is willing to consider that, or there's somebody else out there that is willing to consider that as a half 0.5 position. Or, you know, I think, you know, and I like the fact that we kind of reached out with a kind of a third sort of stretch alternate opportunity with the early childhood education opportunity in the virtual world. I mean, I don't think I would have really thought that was even an option, but it seems, you know, interesting that that's at least potentially available. At least that, you know, rather than just getting rid of the program at all, you know, the idea that you could at least have some opportunity to continue the program with the potential to maybe drum up interest down the road is also interesting. So I'm reluctant to see us not conduct classes for the number of students that signed up and demonstrated the interest. But I also feel like we have to be in Eric's been kind of our conscience on making sure that we're doing the right things when it comes to budgeting from the perspective of pushing forward a budget that we're confident we can actually execute. So I think those are really the kind of the challenges that are up in the air for us. So any other comments or thoughts?
Judy's hands up.
I'm sorry, who does?
Judy's hands up.
Dr. Benson-Clark?
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. So I listened to the presentation by the counselors and psychologists and different folks, and I heard a lot of stress with kids, and that kids are feeling stress, and I know that the dogs are helping in things. I could imagine that something like foods could be helpful. I could imagine some of the kids taking foods and then their friends hearing about it and wanting to take foods too. And the reason why I say this, my kids were lucky enough to have Jen Mott, and she's the best of the best. All of you are. But my kids also took as many AP as they could, and they took a couple of languages and things like that. Well, one of them, and I could send you the report, one of them is at a very highly competitive college right now, where it's extremely unfortunate and sad. They're making national news because of student suicides. And they're actually trying to offer, obviously it's different than a high school, but different kinds of outlets. And I think as we're trying to really meet the needs of our kids, and we don't know what that needs to look like, right? Because none of us were alive when there is this pandemic and this worldwide conflict going on. You know, I remember the presentation by the counselors tonight reminded me of when I was at Marlboro Elementary in 2008, and they shared with us, with the Great Recession, how they had to go back to the kids because they didn't even have things like stress or money on the surveys, but how that, for the first time for some of our regions and districts, as some of the white collar and management jobs were going, kids were starting to feel stressed. And I think it would be short-sighted for us to cut anything at this point. We do have what sounds like a nice turnout. I can't help but imagine that when kids actually realize that they could do something like this, that it would become more powerful. And I think back to Scott, your great presentation a number of years ago to stop ranking students. And one of the things was we wanted them to take some of these classes that were of higher interest to them, or high interest, excuse me, and not just to get their GPA up. So I think that this might align with some of our goals and vision of having this well-rounded student. And I think that we should maybe just let it stay as is for now. I think Sue had some kind of thought about that too. I'd love to hear from her.
Go ahead, Sue.
I appreciate, Scott, you working together with the administration for the presentation. I do appreciate it. Thank you for spending time. I'm sure it wasn't easy coming up with a couple options. I'm a risk taker, so I'm happy and pleased to see that so many students have in a quick turnaround too, because this wasn't the normal standard process that our students had to take to these courses. So while it's not where it needs to be right now, it definitely is overwhelmingly, like Mike said, and I appreciate what you said, Mike, it's definitely more than a 0.4. So in my opinion, I would like to, leave the motion that we made and passed during our last board meeting at this time. That's what I would like to see happen.
Yes.
Is it possible to have option D, where a 1.0 full-time family consumer science person also, because we know that they have a half-time definitive load right now, be that virtual high school person? Part of the job description and expectation would be that you're going to come in and get trained in the spring, or whenever the semester is that they weren't teaching 5, and maybe it's split, so maybe it doesn't matter, but that they get trained and they commit to teaching 1, possibly 2 courses, to almost round that out to a full-time, and then that virtual piece would be, how much or how little would be dependent on how much more students we had on ground that were signing up for courses as the years went on. Is that possible?
I don't know if I can even answer, because I don't know that virtual high school needs that as an option,
Yeah,
whether it's even an option to.
because that would be a
Right.
piece of it, right, is some,
They have
so
to do
obviously
that,
foods
right.
isn't online, early ed is.
Right.
Is there something related to that beyond early ed, right? So there would be maybe some options that this person could use. I don't know.
Again, I don't, that would be determined on virtual high school whether they needed this. Yeah. I do have to say that this puts us in a very difficult position because we can't fill a full-time position that doesn't have students. I mean, we run the risk of hiring a teacher and then having to say to them, we don't have enough classes to keep you whole as a full-time instructor. And certainly we can't hire a position and not have that person teaching every course that's within a full-time position or even a part-time position. You know, I know the numbers are there, but please keep in mind too that, you know, those are the number of students interested. They don't represent the number of students that end up in the classes because of conflicts and whether a student decides, well, I really would rather take something else than this. And so it quite frankly, if I was going to offer somebody a full-time position, but I told them, but we only have enough kids for a half-time position, I'd be irresponsible to offering them that position and they'd be crazy to take it. And so it really puts us in a bit of a bind, particularly when we're working with our other coordinators and telling them we're not going to run drama this year because it only has 7 kids, or we're not going to run another section of English 9, so there's going to be 28 kids or 30 kids in that section. Yet we have somebody potentially on staff who doesn't have courses to teach. And
So can you expound on that? When you say we can't, you're saying that there's contractual requirements not to be able to do that?
yeah, I have to, when we hire somebody, I have to have the number of courses that we've hired them to work to actually exist. I can't hire somebody as a full-time English teacher and only have them teach 3 classes or 4 classes. Or if they do, then I have to, because I have other part-time staff members. And so you have part-time staff members who already are being paid part-time. I can't have somebody and pay them full-time when they only have a part-time course load. Because I've got someone else, the union's gonna be all over me saying, well, you know, you're paying Joe 0.3 and he's teaching 3 classes, but you're paying Gabe full-time and he's only teaching 3 classes.
And the town, right? So when we talk about building integrity with our towns for our budgets, that kind of information, those types of decisions do the exact opposite of what we're trying to build up.
And again, please keep in mind that
It pains me, but
that, you know, I think the most important and most consequential decisions that you as a board are going to be making over the next year or two are resulting from the planning, the comprehensive planning for how are you going to move forward and what positions are you going to keep and what positions might you need to let go as enrollment decreases. And so to create a new position that's only partially filled, then next year, if you're going to be talking about the potential for reducing staff, I mean, that
person's gonna go.
they're gonna have to go. I mean, you can't reduce another English teacher or an art teacher or a social studies teacher and hang on to somebody who only has a fraction of those students.
Somebody online, oh, I can't see who that is.
Jackie.
Can I recommend?
Hi, it's Jackie Wetherell. I wanted
Yeah,
to.
I'm sorry, if you could hold on a second, Jackie, this is I'm sorry.
Oh,
This is
sure.
Yeah.
So my.
Go ahead, Sue.
When is our next Like what's on the books right now? So we have our next board meeting,
April 18th, I think, something like that.
okay, April 18th. And when is the district meeting again? Remind me, I know you just said this.
April 4th.
Because in my opinion, you know, we always could come back and talk about this at a later date as well. And give it more time.
Well, again, Sue, but, you know, my scheduling people are sitting here shaking their heads like they need to move forward and can't move forward unless they know what it is they're scheduling for.
I think it would be, in my opinion, it's hard enough to turn a student away from a course that they have requested, but it would be detrimental to turn a student away from a course that they have been signed up for and then in the end say, oh, no, it's not, it didn't pan out. I mean, I think that we should refrain from any decisions that do that. As much as I want to see this be successful, but this echoes the concerns that I brought up in the previous meeting about bringing this back for this year. And I'm sad that this is what the data is showing, but I think we are responsible to make a data-driven decision and not what we really want it to be and we wish it to be. And I'm wondering if the right way to go is to go ahead with the part-time, the 0.5, because we know we have that, and really work our tail off and try to find a way to build it for the following year. Because you can always say to someone who's part-time, you know, would you like to increase? We'd like to increase you. And if they do, yes. And if not, then you go out and you find your full-time teacher then.
Somebody online? Go ahead, Sue.
Doesn't the numbers reflect a 0.6 right now?
No, Sue, 0.5.
Is there another question online?
Could I cede my time to Jackie? I would like to hear what she has to say.
I guess, I think if there's a specific question, that's probably appropriate. I think if,
Okay, Jackie, my specific question is, I don't know what I don't know about this field. I really want to give kids, and we all do, as many choices as possible. And we want strong programs. And is there something more that I should know?
Go ahead, Jack.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you, Mike, and the board for allowing me to speak. What I would like to note is that the position actually could be offered at a 0.6 if the board saw that as feasible. When you look at the numbers, and I discussed this with Scott, Penny, Chris, and the department coordinators for school counseling, when you look at the numbers, you can see that we could offer 2 sections of ECE 1, 3 sections of Foods 1, and then we could offer a second level ECE 2 as well. Right now, the interest is a small group of a little less than 10. However, as Scott mentioned in our previous board meeting, we have 30 courses right now that are offered at less than 10 for enrollment. And I think the idea behind that is we need to slowly bring this program area back because we have students that are unsure of this even happening. You know, the talk around school is it going to actually happen or not at this point? From the previous board meeting, when the board motioned to put the 1.0 position back into the budget, you know, that was very exciting for us to say, you know, we could potentially be offering all of these courses to our students. So when we look at the numbers, what I would like to consider the board thinking about is we have interest. This previous survey, the first survey that the students had to answer that I shared with you in my presentation, we had over 120 students interested in foods during that first survey. But I will tell you, based on the amount of surveys that our students are receiving lately, I would say that they're probably surveyed out at this point. It would have probably been best to open up Power School to allow the students to register formally for the classes and have our school counseling team work with them to get them registered in Power School. I'm not quite sure what the problem really is around the numbers as far as the difference between the first survey and the second survey. I think that our school counseling team is amazing, and I wanted to note that tonight because I did listen in on their presentation, and I work really closely with them, and I appreciate all of their work that they do around scheduling. And I've also met with Chris and Penny frequently, and I've expressed my thankfulness for them as far as them working with me throughout this entire process and talking with me about these potential changes to programming. I would really strongly recommend that we consider leaving this in the budget because it is clearly an interest area for our students. And I agree with Judy when she discussed the opportunities for the social and emotional piece that comes with opportunities in school like this. I really appreciate everyone's flexibility and understanding as we push forward in planning. And I really am thankful that we have such a strong support from the board around career and technical education. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Mike, may I add something?
Go ahead, Judy.
You know, and everybody knows this. This is not a surprise. I'm still haunted by last year in our February and March meetings. And when we have students tell us we needed to listen more and hear more and talk, even if we were awkward and we didn't understand mental health. And, you know, and I'm not foods. It's fun. It's social. It's not so high pressure. I worry. Our community has lost a lot of people. In Marlboro specifically, as you know, we lost a college student. We lost a businesswoman. You know, we lost our very own RHAM Board of Education. We lost someone who the students said was one of the only people who got back to them after that meeting, that only 2 people got back to them. I really think we don't know what we don't know. Listen, everyone, I'm a world language, science, tech, math person myself, but I think this is so healthy, and it would be short-sighted of us to cut this. And if we go back to our strategic plan, all means all, and that means everyone. So I don't think we should be cutting this. I really don't. And I appreciate the difficulty. It's certainly been a difficult time through everything. But I really think that we should leave this as it is in the budget. Or, Jackie, what would happen, Jackie? Would we get someone, do you think, your best guess, if we went to 0.6?
I really can't say that. I do know that we have applicants right now at a 1.0, and one person in particular that's looking like a really great candidate is actually applying due to the fact that it's full-time. That person is a part-time teacher right now, and they're interested in full-time. So I think because we've only recently posted, we need to give it some more time to even consider if applicants would still be coming in, but we've had a pretty good showing so far, and I'm optimistic that we would find someone at full time. I can't say with a firm answer if we would find someone at a 0.6 or 0.5. I would say based on the 5 months that the 0.4 was posted and no applicants, that's really not in the best interest.
Thank you. I think Carrie's hand is up, Mike.
Thank you. Carrie, do you have a question? Or did you have a comment?
No, I just had a comment. You know, I do agree with Sue and Judy. It is a risk, but at the same time, I think if we look at these numbers, we also have to consider the fact that this program has been shut down and the trust level of the students may not be there because some of them were shifted around last year. It was last year, correct? So they had enrolled, but it wasn't being offered. Is that correct? So schedules were messed up? Is that an accurate statement?
I guess it was offered, but it wasn't, but we didn't have a teacher at that point.
Okay. But I think if we reestablish this program and give it a chance, there is the good possibility the kids will gravitate to it. I mean, the outcry from the community on this particular program has been huge. We've gotten emails, people are talking, coming to the meetings, and I just don't think we can ignore that.
I have a couple of questions. What's the difference from a teacher's perspective and from the hiring perspective? What is there any difference between 0.5 and 0.6? I mean, is it categorized, both categorized as part-time?
Yeah, they're both part-time.
So I guess as I listen to everything, I mean, at this point, we have 0.5-ish worth of students. And so we're 0.5-ish short of students to hire a full-time teacher. So if we walk into this, if we schedule for it and continue to post for a job, that even if we were to add some students, the likelihood that it would meet, what's the minimum requirement for full-time? How many sections?
Be 10 sections.
So we'd have to come up with 4 to 5 sections worth of students between now and when?
Tomorrow?
Because scheduling is scheduling. I mean, what's realistically the latest date you guys can finish scheduling? And
I mean, you're asking a very complicated question. I don't mean to speak for Chris being the current scheduler, but having done it myself, this is a process that is so intricate that it took me a year to figure it all out just to get my head wrapped around it. It's not something as simple as you have to this date to decide. Everything is compounding right now. And every day we stall, we may not have schedules ready for kids until the summertime, and normally they're able to have them in May. So you'd be doing them a disservice. They wouldn't be able to get to their counselors and be able to finalize their schedules in the right way. I don't mean to seem like alarmist about it, but it is a significant problem the more we hold off.
Okay.
Did everyone online hear Penny clearly?
I'm sorry?
I just want to make sure everyone online heard you clearly.
so I guess the second part of that.
And Chris can speak.
Just one more thing that I think is relevant. One of the things we ran into last year, the fact that we weren't able to fill the ECE position. So we had I'm not speaking out of exacts here, but say we had 60 kids who wanted to sign up for those classes. So they had put in requests, we had put in sections with the intent of hiring for that position. That position wasn't filled. So then those 60 kids have to work very closely with the school counselors to look after the schedule is built to figure out if there's an elective option that fits for them. So it's tough because it's a tough thing because it's super sequential. It has to, and if you go out of that sequential process, it really makes it really challenging for kids to get the classes that they want and the electives that they want.
Yeah, the more we hold off, the more it puts our students at a disadvantage to get the courses that they are seeing as their first choices or even second choices. By having the schedule done for May, it allows the counselors to meet with students throughout that month and to the end of school to deal with all the conflicts and the tough decisions that our students have to make when they see that not every course that they've chosen is now able to fit into their schedule. If that gets pushed out into the summer, our counselors don't work in the summer. Then suddenly we have kids coming back to school that don't have solid schedules. So it does have quite an impact on the outcome for students. So, you know, overall, like if we're, no matter what you decide tonight, no matter what you decide tonight, like we'll live with it and figure out and move forward. But if you put it off, that is ultimately impacting all students in a negative way, and I know that's not what you're looking for, because obviously you're looking to see what we can do to support our students, which we all are. So I just, if nothing else, we just really need a clear decision this evening. Move us forward.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Sue.
I felt like the board made a decision already.
And if that's the case, that's fine. It's just, again, just knowing that that's going to be the absolute, you know, in the end, and that it's not going to be something that comes back again a month later.
And just to stress, it does put us in a almost impossible hiring position of not having a full-time position to fill.
So am I to understand that we need a motion for either of, we need a motion on this one way or another, whether it's.
That's not 100% true.
No, okay. Can someone
There's already been a
clarify?
motion for the 1.0. If we're going to change that, there has to be a motion to change that.
Okay, thank you.
There's somebody online that had a question. Is it Mary or who was it?
Their hand is down now.
Oh, okay. So I guess, I'll just circle back, like, this, we've kind of round and round about this, but I don't want to cut this program. I don't want to tell these kids they can't take this class. But I feel like I almost feel like based on if we're listening to the people that are telling us, they're telling us that we'd have to come up with five sections of students to hire a full-time student between now and like next week at the latest, I guess. If we choose to leave it as it is. If we go to a 0.5 or a 0.6 or whatever, then there may be an outside chance of finding enough students to fill that class, to fill those sections. And we could actually hire somebody to do that, because if we don't come up with those 0.4 or 0.5 those 4 sections or 5 sections worth of students, if we continue to move forward based on the motion that we have that has been passed already, then those 5 sections that are currently signed up more than likely won't get a chance to take that class, because we can't hire the teacher as a full-time teacher, because we don't have the positions, we don't have the sections for it.
So what if there's a motion and we say 0.6, and then there's more students signing up, or when they figure out all of the, schedules and students need to be moved around, and then we have more than students sign up and it warrants, that full-time teacher, what happens then?
I don't know, it's a good question.
Well, I mean, we can always request money be transferred to another position. I mean, so if we had a part-time position that we needed to make full-time, we would go to the board and ask, we'd have to identify money to take from somewhere to fill that.
Well, couldn't we do that the other way as well? Like if we don't use the 1.0, then we just note that down?
But I can't hire somebody as a 1.0 and then say, have them leave a current job and then say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have that anymore. Now you're part-time. I mean, that would be, yeah.
Because the money would have to come from the salary, not from
Yeah.
any other line
Right,
item,
right.
because they're not working full-time.
Right.
I don't like that we're putting this risk on students. That's who's at risk here, right? We're listening to the community, I understand, and we've made a decision to fulfill a position that we believe is important to the region. But at the same time, I'm not willing to put the kids' education at risk relative to the tumult that it would create if this were not to be fulfilled. And I think it would be fiscally irresponsible for us to go forward with our fingers crossed. We talked a couple of weeks ago, or the last time we met, about the impact to the community financially that people are going to experience. I think making a smart fiscal decision would show the community a lot of good faith relative to our willingness to make difficult decisions, to compromise on this particular issue, and either go with a 0.5 or to look at other alternatives as well.
But, Mike, you made, I think a good suggestion there, and Lori said something similar, and I've really tried to listen. I think you guys have some great points. What do you think about a 0.6? I would be more comfortable with a 0.6 than a 0.5, just because from my perspective, you know, the 0.6 is just that little bit more to really be part of the community and to be part of doing things. I don't have the pleasure of knowing her, but the person who owns the formerly Something Simple, Flower Girl maybe, said that she would work closely. 0.6 kind of seems like a nice, and you know, I would love 1.0, but I do hear you guys, and I know we do need a motion at some point. Is anybody interested in making a 0.6 motion?
Judy, can I just chime in and I would urge you to listen to the experts that this is what they do for a living. And our coordinators are passionate and they support their programs. That's what we hope them to do. But that information is funneled through the people that actually do the work of scheduling and they have the experience and the expertise to know what is likely to fly and what is likely not to fly. And with the numbers that we have here, I think anything over a 0.5 would be irresponsible. We don't have the numbers for that. And I caution the board, you know, we don't schedule like this. You know, when we schedule, you know, we're making the hard decisions. You give us the money, you give us the FTEs, and we make it work. This is really taking us out of the realm of what we do and how we do it for one single program. If we were, if other coordinators were able to,
Thank you for sharing that.
but you know, if other coordinators were able to have the same passionate support for their own programs, we'd be talking about many, many courses here, not just this one.
No, great. Thank you for sharing that. That makes sense. And you know, it's helpful to point that out because, as you know, we're looking at a couple of screens. We didn't get physical copies, which is fine, but that's helpful. Thank you.
I'll just throw this out here. Look, I mean, get down to the practical. What's the closest reality that will most likely happen? And in my mind, we have the students in front of us right now. The student numbers are staring us in the face. It's a 0.5. So those are already in the books. They're on hand. We do have applicants for this job. We just don't know if that applicant or applicants, A, are qualified to teach the classes, both foods and early childhood. And I know there's some varying degrees of qualification in there that we still haven't sort of vetted out because we haven't gone through the whole hiring process yet. But I guess the question would, you know, if we leave it as a 1.0, then we don't have the students. We might have the teacher, but we can't hire the teacher because we don't have the students. And the professionals are telling us we're not going to get those students. We're not going to get a full-time education, or full-time employees worth of students. We have the students. What we don't know is if we can hire a teacher for the part-time piece based on the applications that we have, or ones that, or if we I would assume we would rebid that.
Correct. Right. We'd have to repost it.
So, I mean, the reality is I almost feel like we're setting ourselves up and at the school and the students for failure if we leave it at a 1.0. But I'm very reluctant to turn around and tell these kids that we have on hand who have gone through the effort of saying, I want to do this, to say no. So I feel like the most responsible thing for us to do is to, you know, basically put our money where our mouth is on the most likely scenario that will actually happen, which right now, if we're looking at the numbers and being honest, it's 5 sections of classes with 1.5 instructor. I'm sorry, somebody else who had their hand up?
Mary.
Mary, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think my concern is I still believe we may be leaving those students stranded if we do a 0.5 as well, because I'm concerned about getting an applicant to fill that position. So I'm not even sure the likelihood of that.
It's fair. It's totally fair. I guess what I'm looking at, it's the other way around. We don't know if a teacher will apply. We know that teachers applied for the full-time job, but if we're accepting the professionals that do this for us, if we're taking their word, they're telling us we have 0.5 sections. So course of action number 1 doesn't really fly. We're basically saying we're not going to conduct any of these classes this year because we can hire a teacher, but we won't have the full-time students. Course of action number 2, you're 100% right. The jeopardy is that nobody signs up for the 0.5, applies for the 0.5 position, but we have the students. But we don't really know that answer yet. I mean, I think somebody noted before that we posted it for 0.4 for quite a while and we didn't get any applicants. I think that's a super fair data point.
But
So-
different times at that
Agreed.
point.
Totally
right?
agreed. Yeah, absolutely
So-
agreed.
So would we have the administration's word that if we were to say 0.5 and we rescinded the motion we made and offered the 0.5, and if we had additional students, then would you come back and then say, listen, we need to hire for 0.6 or whatever? Walk me through that process. I don't want that to be a cumbersome process, like, oh, we can't go back to the board now, it's too late. Like, what does that look like?
Well, I think, I mean, if you just looked at one area, we would continue to look at that and look at the number of requests and the number of students that are getting those requests and why the students that aren't getting the request aren't getting them. Is it a conflict? And so do we need to add it to another period in order to create another section? Again, I have to caution us that I'm going to get other coordinators are going to be asking me the same thing. Well, I've got a part-time position that could use another section. Why not mine? The other challenge, and Chris and Penny, please correct me if I'm getting this wrong, is that a part like a 0.5 teacher, we put the courses together. You know, they don't work the full school day. Their courses are either in the morning or in the afternoon. So if the students, so Sue, in terms of following it through, if we found that, well, we have enough students that aren't getting into the sections and we need to add another elective, that period would have to be added immediately preceding or after wherever the other courses are falling, because we bunch those courses. Because you can't have a half-time person who's here all day because their courses are all spread out. So the answer is yes, we could certainly look at that. It's probably more complicated in its actual reality of what that looks like. And again, I have to be very careful that I'm, because the board may get other coordinators saying, well, we'd like to get more sections for our part-time teachers to flesh things out. And you might have more interest in some other areas.
That's completely fair. And I think this was answered at one point, but just refresh my memory, please. Have we looked at combining with any other schools to be offering basically a 1.0 position between two schools? I think Jackie or you, Scott, or someone talked about this a meeting or two ago.
No, we're not aware of any schools in the area that are looking for that. And again, travel between schools is
No, I understand that, but I thought someone had mentioned that, so maybe my notes are incorrect then.
All right, well, I mean, is there any new add or thoughts, concerns? Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, who's on? Actually, Joe, we'll come back to you online. Joe hadn't had an opportunity to talk. Go ahead.
I don't remember too many people reaching out about the foods program. I remember most of the emails and the people speaking up was about the early childhood education program. And I think the virtual high school is our best bet going forward.
Okay, I'm sorry, there was somebody online? Who was it? I'm sorry, who's it now?
Jackie.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry, Jackie, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to hold off. As part of a board deliberation, you have to be asked questions in order to present. Go ahead.
I have a couple. So a couple of, if we ended up with a motion tonight that was voted on to go to 0.5, would we contact our current applicants for the 1.0 to see if they were interested in 0.5? Is that sort of a proper process that you would follow, or would you just not?
They would see the reposting as a
Okay.
0.5, yeah.
When would that be posted and when would it close? Approximately.
Well, okay, so again, it's.
My thought process is,
Well,
if finding the 0.5 might be difficult, then we put the students who now have requested this in a really tough spot like they were last year, where they signed up for it but then couldn't find an instructor. And I think that, well, for a lack of better word and for it being 9 o'clock, stinks, right? So I'd like to try to avoid that. And I really want to support this, but I'm leaning towards what Joe said, or I'm leaning towards putting it off the table and trying again next year, as I expressed those concerns in the meeting last time. So I guess that's where I'm asking, like, the time frame. Would we know before the end of the school year, before that May happens, if we have a 0.5, if we hired someone, so those students could be redirected to different courses before this school year is over?
So I would say, to answer your first question, when would we could post it tomorrow.
Okay.
I think what I need from the schedule from Chris is and I would hope the board would give us this, is a drop dead date, as if we don't have
That's where I'm
someone
going.
hired by, and I'll let Chris fill in that date, then we would eliminate it and make sure that the kids still had options to get other electives. I don't know what that would look like, and I don't even know if that's, how much of a difference that would make.
Look to move on this either tonight or tomorrow. Like, I spoke earlier about how it's a sequential process, so it's basically, from my perspective, it's either we move forward with the 0.5 sections and we have those kids fill those requests and we move them into those requests. And we go forward with the schedule based on those requests and all the other area requests, like tomorrow. If we do that, again, we could potentially, and we've already talked about this, so I apologize for being redundant, we could potentially be in the same situation that we were last May, where we weren't able to fill that 0.4.
Right.
All kids have already been filled into electives. Those kids who are in the 0.4 have to be manually moved by counselors out of the ECE electives that they had requested, and they may or may not have another elective available that they're interested in.
Right.
With all that
What's
said,
that date, Chris? What is that, like, sweet spot if we have them sign up?
yeah, no, what I'm
Right,
saying
and they're
is,
counting on it, and then we don't find the instructor.
Yep.
What is it, May? Is it May 5? Is it May 20? Is it April 30? What is that?
well, I think just so that I'm making sure I understand your question completely. What I was saying is, like, tomorrow we would move on those requests.
Correct.
And the teachers or the coordinators would start working on their schedules based on those requests.
Right.
Okay, so then we go through that entire process. The coordinators would work with myself to determine what sections are gonna run based on their requests.
Yeah.
Once we get to that point, we build the schedule.
Yeah.
So that, the schedule would theoretically be built by that May date that you're talking about. So I guess what I'm really saying is, like, tomorrow would be the day that we solidify the request and they send the request to coordinators. And I hate to say that, that's just the realistic nature of where we are. So we would potentially be in the same situation as last year, not being able to fill that ECE position. And I say all that, and I haven't had an opportunity to say this, but I say all that knowing that I believe in the ECE program. My son went to the preschool. Like, I've been fully invested in this program. From the scheduler's perspective and the way that I'm looking at it, I'm giving you the logistics and the most, like, concrete timeline and realistic picture that I can based on my experience. So I feel really that I need to throw that out there to you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I'm an early childhood educator, so, I mean, I feel really tied to this program.
Jeff, I'm sorry.
But what I don't want to have happen is the students go in the queue And then like last year, 0.4 didn't happen. And I think COVID was a problem, and we talked about that before, right? So you and I mentioned that, and I think that was really realistic, and I think now it's different. But what I don't want to have happen to those, was it 51 students? That June comes around and we don't have someone, and it's approaching the last day of school or worse, and now we have to change their schedule around. In my opinion, it would be much better to give it a try. What I'd like to do is make a motion for 0.5, and I'd like to make that motion with a caveat that we have the 0.5 person in place by X date, so that if we do not find the part-time person, students can go back to the drawing board, so to speak, before the school year is too late or over, and have their finalized schedule for next year, not over the summer or September 1. So that's why I keep asking that question, and I know it's hard to like throw a date out, and I don't know if it's possible.
So I'm gonna change, I think the question, I think what Chris is saying is that really tomorrow the kids are gonna be starting to get committed to the schedule.
Yeah.
So I think the question is really for the counselors.
Okay.
What would you guys need as the drop dead date if you needed to, reschedule those kids into?
Because we didn't hire because we couldn't hire the person.
Couldn't find a point.
How much time would the counselors need?
So historically, the assistant principal would release the master schedule of students to us in mid-May, usually around APs. That's when we get our initial list of course conflicts. We would contact those students and let them know that. So then between that time frame and the last day of school, we really try to work on those, calling students down and working with them about their individual schedules and any needs in that progression. And then the school counselors work 3 days beyond graduation, and then after that, they're gone for the summer.
So when would you need?
Mid-May.
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 So Friday the 13th, does that sound like mid-May?
That sounds perfect.
But keep in mind that those kids it's not gonna prevent those kids from still having challenges finding other electives.
Correct.
That doesn't
You still
fix that
open
problem.
it, even with that, you still open them up to having difficulty, because they're not doing it from the beginning with something they can 100% depend on.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Right.
Again, it's because kids would have already been loaded into classes at that point.
Right.
So their elective options are more limited
Right.
than they would have been if we had all the requests in. It's really a complicated process. So example is like seniors, they get first dibs on elective courses, just, that's the way it works out. So when we load them, when we finally build the schedule and we solidify all the sections, we push a button, it's crazy to me. And then all the kids, they get filtered into all these different sections based on this algorithm, right? So that's where we are at that point. When I release it to them, to the counselors, I have the highest amount of kids filled into those sections that I can. After, doing this thing over and over again through weekends and nights and like recalculating, because we want the most optimal schedule. We want those requests to be filled. That's like the game that we play is like, it's awesome, it's fun, it's time consuming, it's crazy. But that's what we want. We want to have most kids in those schedules, and they're having their requests filled. And then we would release that to the counselors.
Yeah, he may have to reload multiple times to get the best fit schedule. So he lives, sleeps, breathes this, from now until the end of the school year. But he may have to reload more than once to get the best fit schedule, at least amount of conflicts. That's what he releases to us.
And when you have those, I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you have those 5 courses put in there, the schedule, the computer mind is deciding where do those 5 fit best and where do they fit in best with the rest of the schedule. So not only if we didn't have a teacher at that point, would those students have to find another class, but suddenly to take those 5 classes out of the master's schedule, which then also creates other problems, because now you have potentially too many kids in one period needing to find something to fill that hole, and suddenly you might have classes elsewhere that are now getting over enrolled, and a teacher being asked to teach 30-something kids because they have nowhere else to go. So it's so hard to tell you all of the ramifications that this has when you play with the schedule after the fact. That's why I hate that our answer is not what you want to hear, that we needed this information like last week, but we're just saying at least tonight will be enough. If whatever the unknowns we still have unanswered after tonight, if there are unknowns, that are gonna impact the schedule, it will have, just so many ramifications on the scheduling process in a way that we couldn't even begin to help any of us understand, because it's such a complicated process.
Right.
So-
So is your recommendation to not have students sign up, really, when you do scheduling tomorrow, to not have them sign up for courses that we are not definitive that are going to run next year?
Ideally, yes.
Ideally. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I see you online, but hold on one second. We have one more person inside here. Go ahead, Joe.
I just, on a personal note, I believe there's too much risk in the 1.0 and the 0.5. When if we do the virtual high school, we can guarantee classes for 31 students. When if we choose one of the others, we may not be able to satisfy any of those students at all.
Sue, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you to the board for having this lengthy discussion. I know it's 9:08, so I do appreciate in listening to everyone's feedback. I'd like to make a motion. I feel like I'm doing lots of compromising, but I guess that's the word in the board. The word for the board this year is really compromise. So I'd like to, and Mike, correct me if I am saying this incorrectly, but I would like to rescind the motion that passed on February 28th and make a new motion for a 0.5 position. And I don't even know if I need to rescind the other one. I don't know how.
I don't think you do. I think it's to modify.
Okay, modify.
And you said to the 0.5?
Yes, I'd like to modify the motion that was passed on February 28th to a 0.5 position.
Okay,
I will second that.
okay. Any further discussion
Yes.
on the motion that's before us?
I do have a question, Mike.
Go ahead, Mary.
I'm not sure who can answer it, but so if we were to approve a 0.5 position for family consumer science, how, and to run specifically early childhood ed and foods, how would, we already kind of spoke about the concerns about scheduling, how would that be offered, or would we wait to offer it until we had a teacher hired?
No, we would have to, beginning tomorrow, we would have to offer it. And again, that's our challenge, we would offer it. And so we would start to build the schedule. But again, at some point, if we don't fill it, the counselors are gonna have to try to find places for those kids that did sign up for those courses. But we would start building the schedule tomorrow. We can't add it back in at a later date. The schedule has to start. All the classes that you have, that's what goes in on the first day of the schedule build.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just throw in one point. I like the fact that, Chris, I appreciate you explaining some of the technicalities of that cascading schedule process, because it reminded me that one point that you made was pretty important, which was that seniors get their first shot, and then I'm going to assume juniors and then sophomores and then freshmen. So in my mind, I was a little bit concerned about, specifically students that were later in their career here being impacted to the point that they miss out on something that they may more specifically want to take. But it seems likely that if there's an opportunity for them to move to a class that they want, they would at least have the highest priority to move to that class. Is that a fair statement?
Now, but not.
No.
I know, it's, if you had, I guess the question is, if they had to move, we couldn't hire this 0.5 person, and we had to reorganize those schedules. You're telling me that the seniors out of those 53 wouldn't get the first chance at whatever particular classes were available?
I want to speak to that, Jen.
Yeah.
I hate to throw you. I thought you were asking if we solidified the schedule and move forward.
No, I get that part.
Reload.
I'm talking about when if we get to the point where we can't hire them and now we've got to go back and make changes.
It doesn't happen that way after the fact. It does it that way, we have a logarithm in the.
I get it.
But after the fact, if the course is full, you don't say now we're gonna take a freshman out and put a senior in.
No, I don't mean pulling people out, but I mean, if we have to reload them into another class that they weren't necessarily going to take, the senior would have the chance at the new class if there was space in that class first. That's what I'm saying.
Not at that point, it would be a matter of when they actually talk with their counselor and if there's
The
a
counselor
single-
process.
Yeah, it doesn't.
And you wouldn't prioritize seniors as part of who you talk to first? Or?
It depends, it's based on the nuances of their personal schedule and also what they need for their graduation requirements. If it's something that they need for a graduation requirement,
right.
yes, they would give priority
Right,
to
okay.
underclassmen.
Okay. All right. Well, I was trying really hard. All right. I don't have anything else. Is there any other? Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, you know, Sue made a great point maybe a half hour ago. That, you know, we had voted on this and we had approved 1.0. And under normal circumstances, once the decision has been made, I hate revisiting, you know, it's just who I am. I think what makes this different is that Scott has made it really clear that he would be unable to hire that person full-time for a half-time amount of classes. And so it kind of moved that off the table. So with that in mind, I would be supportive of Sue's motion to change it to a half-time position. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Move it to a vote. Lori?
I'm sorry, but no.
Mike?
No.
Dr. Benson Clark?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Joe?
No.
Jessica? Not present. Carrie?
Yes.
Gabe?
No.
Eric?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
I am going to vote yes. So the yes carries 5-4. I'm sorry, 6-4. We'll move that to a 0.5 and you guys can move forward with the scheduling.
Great.
All right.
Thanks. So just to update, and even I will provide a more specific update, but so that reduction is going to further reduce the salary. So now the overall budget decrease is a negative 1.22%.
All right.
So I know it's late, but we have one more budget thing that we realize, that Eva has all of her financials, but I think a really critical budget decision that still needs to be made is in regards to the surplus from 2021. And right now, the surplus amount is $612,385. Represents the 2% of that year's budget. So as you, I think, may remember, the board approved a motion to allow us to develop bid specs and go out to bid for recommendations on how best to address the repairs necessary on the athletic fields. The bid opening is scheduled for April 25th. We're not going to have that information prior to April 4th. So I can't provide the board with a specific recommendation of how that $612,385 might be used to repair the athletic fields. My recommendation would be at this point that the board make and approve a motion to move the surplus funds to the capital funds in an athletic repair account. That would make the money available for us when we discover what actually needs to be done. Having said that, the board will still have the flexibility of moving some of that money to other accounts. So for example, if it comes in and we find that it's $300,000 to repair all the athletic fields. I'm pulling that money out of thin air, so please don't quote me on that. And that still leaves $300,000 that's unused. The board could decide to use that to create a new account to offset bonding later on for the roof project, or you could use it for, any number of capital type projects. So my recommendation would be to move the surplus into an athletic repair account within our capital funds. It would be irresponsible if I didn't share with you, and I think I shared this in one of my weekly updates, that in talking to Hebron requested that at least some of that money be returned to the towns. Marlborough requested that all of the money be returned to the towns. We are, in fact, returning to the towns $46,230, which is above and beyond that 2%. So each of the towns is getting money returned to them. My recommendation, based upon the fact that we do need to address field repairs, and we don't know what that amount is going to be, that the entirety of the $612,000 be moved into a capital fund for athletic field repairs.
So just a question, based on the fact that we've changed the nature of that one FTE position, plus or minus, what, about $40,000, something like that, 35?
Yeah.
Plus we paid forward from the previous budget. Was that all capital there wasn't all capital, was there some operating expenses?
No, there's operating too, yeah.
So those will all fold into the point. Does that change the fact that we will not be asking for a levy from anybody?
Our whole budget is based on a levy.
No, but I meant it's not an increase in the levy?
Correct. Well,
right, but I mean, there was a point where we were, two of the towns were going to.
Okay, we'd have to calculate that. I understand your question. So the Hebron was actually in our last iteration was.
Because they're doing really well, so yeah.
Yes. Will the reductions we made, I wouldn't want to answer that question without having the definitive answer, which we can have for you first thing tomorrow,
but the evidence probably presents that it's lower, if not.
I think definitely gonna be lower. Definitely gonna be lower. I
get it. I don't want to put you on the spot there, but it's likely that will reduce.
That's correct, because they were actually paying 22,000. Their levy is about 47%, and we've reduced $170,000. So 47% of that, I believe, is more than 22,000.
Yeah, so it's likely that it should go positive. Yes. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead, Sue.
So we're asking to move our entire surplus to capital, and we're earmarking it for the field, right? Because if you have to specify what you want to spend it on, right?
Exactly. And that would be my recommendation, Sue. And then, when we know in April what exactly it's going to cost, or at least I shouldn't say, when we probably know in April or May what it's going to cost. If there's money left over there, it can be shifted to another capital account. So, but I think it would be the safest bet would be to earmark it for athletic field repairs at this point.
And is anything coming off of the capital budget the way it's presented today?
No, all the savings that we proposed were out of the operating budget. So the capital budget saw a decrease of about 17,000 in our last iteration, and so that is currently at
$504,619.
Yeah.
And do we have any idea the amount of the athletic field repairs? No idea? I think I'm looking at your face like you don't know.
We did ask I'm telling too much in my face, I think.
Even remotely, I could still see it.
Yeah. You know, the challenge is that I think depending on the scenario, I think that, yeah, there's likely enough. However, it's the track that could go, you know, it could be a very expensive replacement or it could be not so expensive replacement. That could change the dynamics altogether. So
the answer is we don't know.
The answer is we don't know. Thank you.
Okay. Any other?
I'll just make a slight clarification that it's not the entire surplus that we have because by state rule, I guess I'll call it, we're limited to 2%. So that full 2% would be going over to capital. And then anything beyond that, by rule, gets returned to the towns. So there was another like 46K or something like that.
That's correct, yes.
And so that gets, you know, distributed back. And then, of course, with our results from tonight, now we're at minus 1.22%, that is another way that money is being returned to the town by reducing next year's budget. So personally, I'm not feeling guilty about holding back the 2%, similar to what towns do when they have a surplus. When they have a surplus, they don't start writing checks to all the.
Oh, I know. Trust me. I hear you loud and clear on that, 100%. I guess my question is, you know, we're putting it all, the 2% all in athletic fields, but is there anything in the operational budget? And we can't, right? So we can't move it over. So that's why we're going to dump it in capital, because we always could use money in capital.
Right, and by rule, it has to go to capital.
Right.
Capital non-recurring.
And to be fair, we gave a lot back last year.
Correct. We gave over 700,000 back with at least an understanding that the RHAM board would likely keep it this year.
Right. Yeah. So we're playing a little bit of catch up on our capital budget plan as a result of that. So
that is correct.
Yeah. All right. Any other discussion or any other questions?
Just for clarity, whoever's going to make the motion, please state capital non-recurring is where it's going to, and the athletic field restoration.
Okay. What's the total number?
$612,385.
Okay. Is there somebody that wants to make a motion regarding this funding?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like, well, so it's the reference to the 2%. I have to make sure I refer to that the correct way. So
It's dollar.
I know where the dollar amount. No, I have the dollar amount.
So it's going to the capital non-recurring.
That I
fund,
have. What's it?
And whatever the athletic field restoration or improvements.
Athletic field repair that we,
Okay.
athletic field repair.
Let me give this a shot. I'd like to make a motion that the 2% surplus is allocated to the capital non-recurring budget for the purposes of covering the costs for improvements to athletic fields.
In the
amount of $612,385.
Good.
I would just motion rather than improvements, repairs.
Repairs. Yeah, that's a very good clarification. Yes, that's for repairs, not for improvements.
Okay.
I will second that.
Lots of people want to second.
Yeah. I heard Dr. Benson Clark first. Okay. All right. Any discussion? I feel like we can do this one. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed? The motion carries 10-0. All right. You good?
Good.
All right.
Started with that one.
I should have started with that one. All right. Move on to new business. Financials?
All right, so if we get to 13.1A in your packet, the net favorable position, so there's a little caveat here. So when I did the projected net favorable position, I came out to $566,159 is what you're looking at. However, in light of the fact that we had an adjustment to our excess cost from the state of Connecticut due to COVID-related movements and non-services that were provided to students that were of high cost, I'm taking that into account to reduce the net favorable position by that dollar amount. So the total net favorable position less the excess cost revenue that we will be not receiving is $327,642. On February 27th, we did receive the first payment of our excess cost, which totaled $249,278. That amount includes any adjustments that happened from March 1st of 2021 through June 30th of 2021, and it is included for whatever happened through December 31st of this fiscal year. The final payment, or 25% of what the district is entitled to, is expected to be received on May of 2022. The shortfall again is $238,517 as to what was budgeted coming into this fiscal year. Capital improvement and capital improvement, there are no significant changes. I have hope on capital non-recurring fund, the DOT project. There was a response from the state of Connecticut that said he was in the office and he was working on it. That was 2 weeks ago. We still have not heard anymore.
You're surprised?
I'm not surprised. I was hopeful. And pupil services is continuing to track changes through their IEP process and are in coding and adjusting purchase orders accordingly. We will be having an additional outplacement happening before the end of the school year, but that will be taken into account during the next, hopefully the next board meeting, and in any adjustments that need to be made through the PO process. Are there any questions on what I have covered?
Nope. Nope.
Okay, so hearing none. 13.1B is the high school and middle school student activity report. The balances are through February 28, 2022. The balances in the accounts match up to the Webster Bank account that we had. Are there any questions for student activity?
No.
Nope.
Okay, hearing none. The food service monthly sales, which is 13.1C of your packet. There is still no word on if we are going to be able to have free universal meals moving forward in next fiscal year. Please note that the federal government's fiscal year ends on September 30th and begins on October 1st. So that sort of puts a crink into our planning process because we won't know in time to set lunch prices. So for the April board meeting, I'm going to be bringing forward some information to help us set lunch prices in the event that we have to charge students again for lunch. I do have a positive note. We did have income come in for our food service. So we had a net income of $9,825.37. Woo-hoo. So we got into a little bit of the black there. So getting out of the red. So are there any questions on anything that I may have spoken to on the food service?
Nope.
Okay, so
No.
hearing none, we are at the transfer portion of the event, 13.1D. So these transfers have been conducted and they are the latest round of transfers that happened in there for January and December and January. So what you have here are 18 journal entries that total $155,814.85. Personnel transfers happen through the course of every pay period. I will review to make sure that
somebody didn't go over or under, depending on if there's movement in or out of an account, if there was overtime that came up for any reason, and or if department coordinators or department heads requested money moved so that they could purchase items because the costs were higher or the need for something else arose that was unanticipated. Are there any questions that you have on this?
You need to act on this now?
I do.
Okay. Are there any controversial or issues, concerns, any of these transfers?
Just a question.
There's no controversial. No, they're all, they're all.
Okay. Go ahead, Aaron.
Either there's the entry 119, January personnel transfers, entry 125, January
So
personnel
I do
transfers.
it every pay period.
Oh,
we
so
set
it's
dates.
2 per month.
Correct.
Yeah, gotcha. Very good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. Can I have somebody make a motion, please?
Go
ahead, Aaron.
Motion to accept the budget appropriation transfers for the month of January.
Yeah. It's.
Since
how-
January.
Yeah, it's since January, so in essence, it's, how does this go? So we do January and February transfers in the month of March, so. Yeah, so
Okay, January and February transfers,
In the amount of,
$155,814.85.
okay, is that adequate?
Second.
Okay, Sue seconded it. Great, thank you. All in favor? Actually, discussion? Sorry, jumped the gun. No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 10-0.
Mike, Mike,
Go ahead, Sue.
usually at 9:30, we take a straw poll to see if we're going to continue on. That's
Okay,
one thing. And then two, at times, we have known to skip committee reports to,
okay,
because the meetings are running, past the allotted time. So just
Okay.
a couple suggestions there.
so I'm not opposed to that at all. I guess the question I have is, do we still need to go through public comment? If I'm
Correct,
Okay.
right.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we have 2 more items that need approval tonight.
Okay.
13.2, 13.3. I think Sue is correct that we've skipped the committee reports in the past, and I think I've been keeping people appraised of what's been going on there. I've been in communication with the chairs for any meeting changes stuff, so I think we can skip those this evening. I recommend that we skip those this evening.
Okay, go ahead, Eva.
okay, so on 13.2, this is an annual election for the Board of Ed to decide if they want to participate in the healthy food, in what we receive funding from the state of Connecticut. I believe it's an additional 10 cents. I don't think it's per meal, but there's some calculation that they do that comes out to about 10 cents that they give us extra. Each of these are 3 motions. If you read the first motion, every motion has to be read in its entirety.
Of course it does.
Yes, it does. It's the federal government. But anyways, so what if you say yes and make the motion to pass the first healthy food option and want to participate in healthy food, you have to read 2 and 3. If you chose not to participate anymore in healthy food, then that's where you stop. So it's up to the board. This is again an annual election. We've participated pre my time, and on May 1st, I'll be here 4 years, so.
You want to just give us just a little bit of color on that?
Sure, yeah, this was, Healthy Foods Initiative was controversial when the school store was in its full bloom and, we were selling items that didn't fit into this and the board, in conjunction with the school, really pushed back at joining the Healthy Food Initiative so that the school store could continue selling what they were selling. However, I think 6 or 7 years ago,
we saw it as really out of touch with where things were going as far as school nutrition goes. And we do receive the additional financial benefit, the district receives the benefit. So it made sense for us to change our recommendations and begin to recommend that we in fact do abide by the Healthy Foods Initiative. So at this point, all of our sales within our cafeteria, vending machines, including our school stores, are completely in line with this, as well as our fundraisers. So, the school's recommendation would be that we continue to abide by the Healthy Foods Initiative.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, do I have a motion?
We would just need someone to read number one.
So whoever makes the motion gets the honor of reading it.
Eric's gonna do it, all right.
Eric has made any motions.
I'll make a motion that we continue the healthy food option, and here comes the paragraph. Pursuant to CGS section 10-215F, as in Frank, Regional School District 8 certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempted from the Connecticut nutrition standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period of July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023. The certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or by non-school organizations and groups.
Discussion? Actually, I need a second.
I'll second it.
Mike seconded it. Discussion?
I memorized that, by the way.
Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 10-0. Somebody do the next one.
We have to read all three of them?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. I'd like to make the motion that the board approve the exemption for food items. Regional School District 8 will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards, provided that the following conditions are met. 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. 3, the food items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held.
Any discussion? I'm sorry, I need a second.
I'll second.
Who was that?
That's
Sue, was that Sue?
It was scary.
Oh, sorry. Carrie seconded it. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 10-0.
All right, I'll just do the next one.
Go.
All right, I'd like to make the motion that the board approve the exemption for beverage items. Regional School District 8 will allow the sale to students of beverage items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards, provided that the following conditions are met. 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. 3, The beverage items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. The regular school day is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held.
A second? Gabe seconded it. Discussion? Hearing no discussion. A vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 10-0.
Can I just publicly state that the chocolates in your drink containers are not being sold to you, so therefore are not violating any foods? And the beverage containers I offered you as a gift are not filled with any beverages whatsoever, so I think we're covered
You're covered.
for at least two of those. One more thing to.
Go ahead, Eve.
One more thing, the last thing, 13.3, we held a bid opening for our athletic trainer services. And I tried to do this twice, and the second time I was successful in receiving one response. So the response is from Select Physical Therapy, who we currently contract with, but their contract ends on June 30th. So I'm hoping that the board chooses to award the bid. If you flip to the next page, it'll be a 5-year contract, and those are the prices proposed in the 5-year contract. Yes, there's no increase going from this fiscal year to next fiscal year. Thank you for pointing that out.
So this year we paid $35,000 for the bid, so the rebid came in at the same price for the 22-23 year.
Okay. I'm assuming that these late 2026, 2027 also anticipates that we're going to have more students here, because isn't that when the middle school and the high school start to?
It is, that's correct, yes, yes.
All right.
Around during the,
So we have a trainer on, well, not on staff, we contract with them, so there's a person who, they have an office down by the weight room, across from the weight room. The person will tend to the students' needs, the athletic students, whether they have sprains or they'll do physical therapy with them. They actually go down to the football field and help with concussion protocol, soccer, they're around quite often.
I think they take kids up and stuff like that.
Yeah, that too.
and it's, this is after school?
Yes.
Correct. Yep, they're here pretty much every afternoon.
And then I think whenever we have events, right, like even on the weekends, if we have games and stuff like that, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds okay.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I think Joe wanted to make a motion.
I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Oh,
Well, it's okay, so basically what the motion is gonna state is that you're allowing, as the board, for Mr. Lent to enter into the 5-year contract with Select Physical Therapy, so you don't need the numbers.
All right, I make a motion for Superintendent Leslie to accept the bid from Select Physical Therapy.
okay. Any second? Gabe will second it. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. 1-0.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. All right, that being said, somebody want to make a motion to skip the committee reports for this week, or this month?
I'll make a motion to skip the committee reports this month.
Okay, any second for that?
I'll second it. Carrie.
Give that one to Carrie, okay? And then, any discussion? Hearing none, a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. That being the case, we'll move over into public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to present for public comment, whether they're here personally or if they are? Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm gonna move from up front the screen. I'll keep it short, I promise.
Just need your name and where you're from.
Ethan Spinelli, 22 Rivendell Road, Marlboro, RAM teacher, RAM parent, president of the RAM Teachers Association. On behalf of the 143 faculty members, I'd like to welcome you to RAM, and we extend our heartfelt appreciation for the job you're about to do. I think we've shown him tonight what an awesome district we are and how we work together to solve problems. I think we are an exemplar of how boards should behave. We've had a discussion tonight. There is no topic too small to discuss at length, let's just say, into the hours of the night. We had input from all stakeholders, from the board, to our administrators, to our department heads. This is truly how our district functions every day, all the time. We didn't throw insults and we didn't throw punches. No offense to our neighbors to the north. But, just the topic of the discussion we had tonight on the position, we make tough decisions every day, all the time. It is difficult to make those decisions. There is a lot of ripples that happen when you throw a rock into the pond of scheduling that extend far beyond just throwing kids into classes and making sure that they're happy. It is truly a remarkable process. And if there's any consolation I can give to the board, it is that our students are resilient. They will understand that if they cannot get into this class, it is not the end all be all. They will understand that you worked hard and you did the best you could with all the circumstances that you had to consider. They will get through it. Maybe it's appropriate that we had our support service staff here. Maybe Barnabas can come in an extra day. The students will truly get over it. And I know it's a tough decision for all the board members to make. It was an easy one, but we will get through it. And our administrative staff that does the scheduling, they were resilient as well. And we will figure this out. We will. And that's what RHAM does. We figure things out and we work as a community. Speaking of community, just my last comment. We do have an expert in the room tonight. And I'd be remiss if I didn't welcome the new superintendent, but didn't take the opportunity to thank Mr. Leslie for his time and his dedication all of these years. So I thank you on behalf of the faculty. He has been here, I was going to say longer than anybody in this room, but I felt that would be more of like a backhanded insult than a compliment. But we truly appreciate it. I know you're not running for the door yet, but I knew this would be a good opportunity to thank you in public for all the work that you've done. And I've witnessed that firsthand, and believe me, he has been working quietly for the past year and a half to make sure that he leaves this district in the best hands possible in every aspect of this district. So thank you, Scott. I appreciate it, and welcome.
Thank you.
And I hope you all can go home now.
Any other public comment? Hearing none. The point 16, the informational items are listed. Any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Mike made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second. Dave's a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.